Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about California's forgotten people. Now, I am a California native. I was born and raised here. My mom and dad's side, our family is from, well, some may have migrated, and I'll say maybe my great grandparents. On my dad's side, I know my great grandparents were here in California. Um, my mom's side, they also have been here in California for a long time. I haven't met my great grandparents on my mom's side, but at least I've met my grandmother and my grandpa on my mom's side. Passed away. I don't even think I was born yet, but he passed away, or he probably was, here when I was born. I don't know, but never really met him. But I traced my family um, not only from here, so there's several generations here in California on my mom and dad's side. And we're, family from the Bay Area to the Central Valley, all the way into LA and San Diego. So I have roots here in California. And if we're talking about native, I am native to California, meaning I've been from the north to the Central Valley to the south. I know the back roads, the one freeway even. So I have you know bloodline history here. Now I know my family also migrated here, again, way before I was even thought of, coming from the South. So I trace back, I believe, my mom's side in Louisiana, my dad's side, um, coming from, I would say, Texas areas, Oklahoma area. Also, when I did my ancestry DNA, it traced my family back to the East Coast as well. So I do have family on the East Coast as well. When we're talking about the 13 colonies and early American history, when we're talking about United States of America, before the settling of Europeans, before immigration was anything, before the United States of America was anything, pretty much trace my family, both mother and father side, through the transatlantic slave trade that came through the East Coast and migrated down to the south, or was taken down to the south. So there's different scenarios of what took place during those times. And then when things when black people became free, of course there was this great migration that happened from the south. This is why you've seen black people in northern states and western states. But we'll talk about that a little bit when we go through this presentation. But my presentation is focused on California and the signing of SB 518 or 518 for some of you. That was signed by our current governor, Gavin Newsom. Now, for me, I see it as a slap in the face. And I see it as a slap in the face because it's I don't know if this restorative justice, if this bill is going to look at the historical building of California going back to when the Spanish colonized this area. Okay. So if that's the case, because we're not talking about Mexican people, Venezuelan people, El Salvadorians, we're not talking about those people because they're Central America and way down south, right? And you have some people that says, California is Mexico, but again, when you're not someone who understands history, and even being an American, we are engulfed in history here of our country. When you're not understanding that, of course, in your mind, or of course, someone would feed you the belief that something belonged to you. So we'll talk a little bit about this more deeper, but my focus is on this SB 518 bill that was signed and supposed to be some type of policy of progress, but I think Black women specifically should not allow this signing to emotionally make you feel as if you aren't able to continue to ask or demand more so that a lot of stuff gets cleaned up here. I love my state. When people talk about my state, usually they're not from here. They never really been here. They only know of LA and San Francisco, which is more than 9 hours apart. Okay, because we're a big ass state. All right. um, People who talk about this maybe have visited, here and there. When you see the news, it's predominantly focused on Los Angeles or San Francisco. Sometimes they'll put our state capital, Sacramento, in there. But outside of that, the other states don't really hear nothing about any of the other areas that we have here. Our agricultural land, our beautiful ranches, our coastline from the north all the way to the south is just such a beautiful scenery. There's areas where you won't even see a lot of homelessness, even. You may see some poverty stricken areas as well when you're coming to the Central Valley. You have a crowd of people that are predominantly, again, in Los Angeles County, which you have millions kind of there, and we may dig into that a little bit more, and then as well as San Francisco, because these are the main hot spots of California when we're talking about innovation, jobs, opportunities, and especially LA, since it's known for Hollywood and a lot of our movies that came out of Los Angeles. So we're going to just talk about this a little bit when it comes to SB 518 and how I think that could be a step, but I feel like there's more that needs to be done, from our current government to whoever the next governor is going to be. And I think the primary focus needs to be on immigration and how California and its governors and its state and its committees and councils allowed for an influx of people to come here and overrun it, and providing funding to these people, which displaced not just Black Americans, which this is kind of focused on, but it displaced Americans in general here. How again, I'm a native here, so I've seen since a little girl the changes. Where there wasn't even a lot of immigrants here. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like I remember growing up in we could say middle class, and it was Black and Hispanic um, people living in neighborhoods, because that was my neighborhood. It was middle class, but these weren't, the type of Hispanics where they don't speak English clearly and articulately. And I think that has changed over time, where a lot of our communities have been displaced, and we were all homeowners. We all pretty much was cool with each other. I remember the neighbors. I had neighbors across the street, and I can tell the difference of people who came across the border versus people who's from here, right? And they were into creating those nice, cool ass bikes, those lowrider bikes. Um, the style of dress is even different compared to people who's coming over the border. Again, we speak clear English to each other, right? Even though they may have speak some Spanish here and there, but we were definitely Americans. And again, every in my community that I grew up in, as far as like at a young child age, was Black and Hispanic homeowners, middle class. We didn't have a lot of Africans here. We didn't have a lot of Asians that I can recall, you know, probably in other areas of California, but it wasn't where I grew up, which is the Central Valley. Um, and the schools we went to were predominantly African American named schools from people who have made marks in our country as freed. They call them freedmen or free enslaved, unenslaved people. So I've seen a lot of that. And then over the times, I want to say maybe junior high, and that's probably year 2000 or so, we started to see more influx of people come in, you know. Um, and, I'll say it was different, and it wasn't crazy yet, but it was different, right? But again, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't think of anything about that. Again, everything was pretty much cool. And then maybe when I got to high school, we had some, different Asian cultures here, like Cambodians and Vietnamese and Hmong, excuse me, because California became a more of a mixing pot, right? But this is to say that, unfortunately, due to policies and changes within our government, it allowed for an influx of people to now predominantly appear as if their contributions to California have been for so long, and that's just not the truth. And to sign a bill for Black Americans, SB 518, for me, I feel it's a slap in the face because it's not going to get to the root of the problem when we're talking about labor, how it's been exploited, and a bunch of illegal activity going on with hiring practices here. Whole communities being displaced, names of schools that were American named schools are now getting changed. And, this is why some people are frustrated. It's not just, Black people, but, the frustration is from all Americans towards our government. So you see this shift kind of going towards Republicans because they are showing that they're more engaged in the American people. Okay. And I knew it was going to come sooner or later because, again, Black people have been talking about this. We see the displacement, you know, um, we see the changes in the healthcare system with the hiring. We see different food service businesses that are now seeming to be, Latin foods more than Americanized foods or other cultural foods, depending on where you go. Like if you go to LA, you may see more of those cultural foods, but you see that. I've seen how LA, in my opinion, has gotten dirtier, okay, because of this lawlessness. Homelessness have increased like crazy here. So it's not just people from here, but you're getting people from other states or other countries coming here, and they're able to take advantage of a system through loopholes. So it was interesting to hear, and I forgot the guy's name, but it's interesting to hear them say, illegal or undocumented immigrants cannot take advantage of Medicare systems, but the things that have been exposed is that yes, they can because you guys have loopholes and your failure to run audits. Not only that, you have a president, and again, I like to start from 2008 because a lot of us millennials, we were still either in college, starting college, or just graduating out of college, right? So we weren't really truly established, but it's to give us an oversight of what took place with our parents and grandparents so that we can move forward and heal and demand that we turn this country back into an American country, the United States of America. Okay. So let me go ahead and get started with this presentation. Now, for generations, California has branded itself as the land of opportunity, a beacon for dreamers and sanctuary for all. And when you look at some older movies or when you think of Michael Jackson and Motown, people would love to come to California. It was just a thing for people to want to come over to California to make it, right? Make it big, whether it was in entertainment, jobs, or whatever. So, even after that migration that took place, the great migration that took place within freed slaves or free Black people across the US, even when we're talking about the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people would love to come over here because it was so beautiful. And that's what I'm saying, people can talk shit about California and, they're probably more than likely attacking our laws. But when you're here and whether you go into Republican areas or Democrat areas, there's still a lot of beauty here and a lot of beautiful people here. Okay. Now, for Black Californians, and this is specifically American Californians, Black American Californians, this sanctuary has been a mirage. We built this state with our labor, our culture, and our taxes, only to be written out of its prosperity. So, we're going to definitely dig into some of these things. SB 518, signed by Governor Gavin Newsom, symbolizes that betrayal. A bill that celebrates progress in headlines while leaving the very descendants of California's founders locked outside the gates of equity. So, again, we're seeing changes in our government system, whether it's local power, especially in cities that have been popularized over time. Crime has been rampant, meaning it's the government not having the law enforcement crack down on crime, and that's what you can see the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Republican people, and I'm not saying all of them, but I'm just talking about the party's identity in general, the conservative party in general, right? They have always been against crime. They prison systems here are very huge, especially California is known to have, I think, either the most or the biggest prisons here. So we have a lot of crazies, don't get me wrong. But again, you have people coming from all over coming to this state, and through the policies, through our different governments, because I'm not going to say just Gavin Newsom, right? But because of their policies, it affected and displaced a lot of people here. Now you got people here who claim they're not going to pay for SB 15 and we're going to take advantage of their taxes and blah, blah, blah. To me, I'm like, are you first, second, or third generation? Because you haven't even been here that long. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to speak to policies and things that push the Black American communities here, specifically in California. So this is to focus on California specifically. Now, our story is not one of victimhood, but of endurance. From Los Angeles to Oakland, from the Central Valley fields to the Bay Area ports, Black Californians have fought to claim a stake in the land we helped create. So, again, when you're seeing displacement happening, education, local power you're losing, crime, homelessness, you have to think, I'm going to follow the money and I'm going to see what took place that prosperous Californians, because the news or media or people like to focus on um, the lower class of blacks, right? They focus on them, or they don't understand that some black people are fed up and they may not be criminals, but they have they're disgruntled, right? Because you've been fighting for stuff for so long and things haven't been fixed for you, so you're disgruntled. Now again, and we'll go into the history of the start of California to let you know that people that are just coming here, maybe first, second, or third generation, they have no claim here. You can't claim something that was already kind of built up, and then they displace people to give you a handout, to be lenient on you being here, right? We used to just have migrants, seasonal migrants, in my opinion, that used to come here and then they leave. And then we had Cesar Chavez, who fought for better rights and pay on those farms. But again, it's nothing different from the Black Americans who were already working on those farms or who were already farmers who've been fighting for the same thing. So to me, it doesn't make a huge difference that you fought for something that was already being fought for. So um, it's just interesting, when you're getting down to the meat and potatoes of this, of what really took place. Now, this movement is a reckoning, a demand for recognition, restitution, and respect. California cannot call itself progressive while its native sons and daughters live beneath the poverty line in the shadow of billion-dollar equity programs that never reach them. So, again, we're going to look at following the money as well so we can understand why our Americans in California, and specifically Black Americans, are not taking advantage or not getting the advantages or benefits of funding programs that should be directed towards Americans, right? If you are legal if you're a legal citizen naturalized, then you would benefit from those same things. But we're going to talk about how California became more of an illegal immigrant or just an immigrant based a state, right? So let's talk a little bit about why I think SB 518 is a slap in the face to the Black American community here in California. So SB 518 was sold as justice reform. It's always about justice, right? Justice, justice, justice. They want to go in and look at, land and property and things that have changed here. It's going to make people upset, but I personally don't care because, again, if people have to hold your hand to give you stuff, then I don't think you have a dog in this fight. You didn't work for it as you think you did. You didn't work hard for it. It's something you believe because people are telling you that, or believe these certain type of people are bad or horrible. But again, there's different classes of people within our own ethnicities, and I think that the displacement had ruined a lot of people mentally over time. Okay, now this is supposed to be SB 15 518 is supposed to be a promise of rehabilitation and fairness. But fairness for whom? Okay. While homelessness among Black Californians skyrockets and our neighborhoods crumble, this bill quietly diverts attention and funding toward reentry and leniency programs that benefit everyone except those who suffered longest under the state's neglect. It's a photo op policy, compassionate in theory, cruel in practice, because it ignores the real inequities rooted in economics, housing, and education. Now, again, me growing up, I think I had the best freaking teachers starting out, and they were predominantly Black in a Black school called Mary McLeod Bethune. Now, when I go there, I don't know when they changed this school's name, but they changed it out to be some type of Hispanic name, which is like, wow. Wow, because that was a predominantly Black area where I came from. You did have Hispanics, don't get me wrong, but it was a predominantly Black area, and you had some good teachers, okay? Meaning crime started to pick up here and there. And I remember when that crime picked up, because this was like in the early 90s or whatever. But I remember seeing it around the elementary schools. But again, if you have a government and local law enforcement who isn't cracking down on it and making neighborhoods safe, then it's going to get rampant. So gang activity, people fighting each other just for no reason. I mean, vicious. It's way vicious than what you see today. But those are things that I've seen, the changes over time, as a native here in California. Okay. Now, when our people ask for investment, we're handed symbolism. And that's what I think. I think SB 518 is just a symbol, and the governor is not really taking it serious, the Black American vote, that we are tearing to the Republican side. And I don't know, they may see an uptick in Black people, Black Americans, um, registering as Republicans. They may see that uptick happening because, and again, I think the failure of Black people in general, we allowed media, we allowed people who we believe that was for us to also manipulate us. That's why I say Black women, you can't let your emotion affect your vote. All that stuff matters because if Black women are in a high percentage of entrepreneurs and education, why are we not seeing the funding coming towards us? Why is our buildings, our storefronts being vandalized the most? Why are people doing it? And then again, we don't know if they're all just Black people attacking Black women business ownership, but we know these things happen. Why are certain Black neighborhoods being terrorized by people who just got here and having to, intimidate a Black family, right? Who's not gang affiliated, who have two Black parents who are just working, and they're trying to displace them. And again, if we have a government who is not cracking down on crime and just want to be lenient, then those things take place, right? And then you have wars in the street, or and all this kind of crazy stuff is starting to come up, right? Homelessness, all this stuff. So that's why I believe this bill is a slap in the face because it's not looking at modern times as well. It's not looking at what's going on today for the governor to say, yo, we're going to participate and work with ICE. We are going to also work on shutting our border down. We're not going to allow just a rampant of businesses because we can look at the count and see that there's too many businesses here that our own Americans aren't benefiting from. And this is why I've already seen it coming years ago when Republicans were already fighting against this stuff. So it's not new, right? It's only new to people who don't understand our government, and it's only new to people who were manipulated and don't understand that their vote was in vain because the people you voted for did not protect you. They did not provide funding to continue to allow your community to blossom, to do the things that need to do. So when we ask for accountability, we're told to be patient. So this happens a lot. And this is why we have to demand, and we can't just allow a bill like this to be some type of reward or, hey, we're thinking about you type shit. No. On top of this bill, we need further changes that we're demanding. And even if you're not going to do that, we're going to be voting Republican. It's just what's going to happen, right? Now, SB 518 is proof that the governor's priorities are misaligned with California's reality. The state spends millions studying our pain but refuses to fund our repair. Until leadership measures progress by outcomes for Black Californians, not by applause from donors, every new bill will be another insult disguised as reform. Meaning this agency, quote unquote, that's being, built up from this bill could not mean a goddamn thing if they're not going to do anything for you, right? If they're not going to say, you know what, this land is yours, right? Or, you know what, we did see policies that affected the Black farmers here before the immigrant labor came into California, right? We're going to look at all of that. We're going to look at education. We're going to audit and be stricter and enforce e-verify. We're going to hire more people that are going to check in each county, in each city, in each town that they're not hiring people who don't even have work authorizations, and a lot of this stuff is being exposed, which I knew it was coming because Democrats unfortunately failed to take care of business. Their failure to not even see that this was going to happen, because if they had the Black American vote, which Black women voted 92%, then they're still being supported by Americans, a certain American type, which is the African American community. So you're still being supported. Then you're supported with people who became legalized. And we're also seeing the exposure that some people have been getting by because they didn't crack down on anything illegal, illegal activity, hiring practices, and all that stuff. Because they did not do that, you have people who are able to potentially vote. And that's what Republicans were screaming and ringing the alarm for. That saying, hey, we want IDs. We want, this. We don't want mail-in ballots. And this is why, because they had a feeling or belief, let's just say they had a belief that the more undocumented people that they've seen come in appears to be ingrained into our American system, and it's illegal. So it's not always about that these people were racist or had racist thoughts, but if you're an American, you have to think about that. And Black people, we have to think about that. Black women, we have to think about this in a way that we're saying, yo, um, even though I voted for these people, right? Why am I being displaced? Why are Black women not benefiting? Their businesses are not benefiting from funds. Why is SBA loans not available to them? Why is this help being geared towards certain people? Where's the clinics? We had doctors here, Black businesses. We had a lot here. So that's what I'm saying. Like, the newcomers here have no idea about America the landscape. They're just being told anything. And I'm not blaming them, right? But I'm saying that they're being told certain things and they come here with that same mentality, and people and the Americans are against Democrats because we're like, yo, do you guys even care about Americans? Because look what's going on. Look what the homelessness. Like I said, Los Angeles and San Francisco are horrible looking. Like I haven't been to downtown LA in years because I refuse to go. I lived on the outskirts in Los Angeles County, more different areas that were upkept. They may have been red areas, meaning Republican areas, but the upkeep was better. You didn't have a lot of homelessness, but you did have crime. You had people there again trying to intimidate, but I never got intimidated. I don't get intimidated like that. It doesn't affect me like people probably want it to, especially when I know that you don't even belong here. Like, and I'm an American, right? I got the law on my side, and I got people ready, on my side. So I don't let that affect me, and especially when you are ingrained in your country, right? You love your country, you love everything about it and what you know about it. Even though things happen, like I still love my country, right? And I love to be in California. I just love it here, right? So let's go to this next slide. Let's talk about how California was built by Africans and freedmen. Now, we remember that California was not a part of what we call the Union, okay? And the Union was pretty much, started with the 13 colonies on the East Coast, Upper East Coast area. Then, as things changed over time, those same Europeans started to, you could say, settle or fight even to take over other territories here in America. And California was being one of them. Now, when we talk about Europeans, Spain is not for Mexico. It's not Latin America. Even the term Latin is from a European perspective. It's not even from the Americas. Okay, so that's first things first. So Spain was still this European colonization that was happening, or you can say settlers, if there was no nation here, right? So were there Native Americans when we're talking about indigenous people? Yeah, they were definitely here. But they, when you look at some of that, it wasn't this nation. It wasn't where it's called a country, right? Because you had different tribes in different areas who got displaced, who fought wars against Europeans, unfortunately lost. Just like what happened in Africa. There was just wars that took place, and the loser of that war, which happened to be the Africans, right, in different areas, we lost over time. But we put up a fight, but we lost over time. So that was actually happening at the same time as America was. I'll say United States of America. I'll try to be specific. Was being built up, right? So moving out those people and bringing in enslaved Africans to build this country up. And you already had Spain. Now, Spain did have enslaved people, but you had Spain had more of your what they call Afro Latins. And again, you have Afro Latinas here, Afro Latinos here in America, but that term came from a European standpoint, right? Because Latin America here, again, when we're talking about European people and the Spanish or Italians or Portuguese that came here, this is how you can tell that it's nothing of native land, right? It's nothing of Native American land or people here because it became European land, right? Like Spanish is to Hispanic people or Latin America, and that's or Portuguese even when we're talking about Brazil and Southern America, that is the same as African Americans speaking English, right? These are all European based languages that came here, and we've all assumed that identity and that language, okay? So before California joined the Union, it was Africans and freedmen who laid its foundation. When Los Angeles was founded on September 4th, 1781, so this was right after 1776. So remember, 1776 is why we as Americans celebrate July 4th. Okay, so we know United States has became a thing, and this is years later, where now you have some African Americans or Black Africans or enslaved Africans are becoming free from the South and starting to migrate as well. You know, before the 1900s migration or the 1800s migration, this was already happening in 1700s. Okay, now the city was born from 44 settlers known as Pobladores. Sorry, my tongue is not rolling on that R. But that's what it was known as. And again, these names, when you hear these names and you hear the Spanish, I just want you to correlate and associate it with Europeans. Okay, just keep it in that realm so you can understand um, the changes in the land and what took place over time. Now, and over half of them were of African descent. So a lot of those Europeans coming from Europe, Spain, or what they call Latin, you know, the Latin language, and Greeks, Romans, and then Africans for centuries were already mixing, already knew of each other. This was already going on, right? It was just at some point those Europeans began to take over the continent of Africa, right? Even the French, when you go to Africa, you hear some European languages spoken in different African countries. You have French is widely used over there because the French was everywhere. You have Portuguese. There's even a country in Africa that speaks Spanish, and they're not even from here, right? So that's to let you know where those languages were already starting and those people were already mixing. Okay. Now, Spanish records show that 2 were classified as Negro and 8 as mulatto. So Africans and Afro Latins, okay? And many more as mixed Afro Indigenous people. 26 of 44 carrying African bloodlines, meaning predominantly the people who were first settling here in California, during the colonization from Spain, a European country, were mostly of African bloodlines. Again, because Spain already knew about Africa, they were already mixing. This was already going on previous to the transatlantic slave trade or the thought that America was going to be, have this country called United States of America. Okay. Now, only 2 were white Spaniards. Again, white Spaniards. Okay. These were the true founders of Los Angeles, not European colonists, not later immigrants. Okay. And there's difference, of an immigrant versus a settler. Two different things, right? Now, their hands built the first homes, tilled the first fields, and raised the first church under a name that honored Our Lady, the Queen of the Angels. Okay. The city's story begins with Black families carving a new life in a land still under empire. So, again, California was still under the Spanish Empire, not Mexico's empire, not Brazil's empire, but the Portuguese. Really not even English speaking people, because again, we have when you come to California, you'll see some of the cities or signs are still in Spanish. So it was an empire already, and you can look at America as, even though it was European in general, but there was 2 different empires taking place at the same time in the United States of America. Okay. So this gives proof that California's roots are undeniably African long before statehood or modern migration. So if that SB 518 bill is not focused on the history from 1700s to the 1600s, if they're not focused on any of that, because this wasn't even called, Mexico wasn't even a name yet, right? There was no real flags. There was none of that even happening at that time. So, but now you have people, because of certain leniency, claiming that this is their land and blah 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 and raising their flags. And that's why some Americans are like, "Yo, what the hell? I thought if you want to be here legally or blah, 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 why are you even flying those flags if you feel like you're Americans, right? So this is what we're saying, okay? Now, as the frontier opened, more freedmen and women from the South followed their footsteps westward, carrying hope and skill instead of chains. Among them was Biddy Mason. Now, some of you may not know about this woman, but she was able to uh, get her freedom because she came from the South. So again, this was some early migration that was happening from enslaved Africans as well. Because again, you had some enslaved people that was here under the Spanish Empire. When we're talking about California, and then you have the other side of the English Empire, um, which had slaves, right? And predominantly the South, right? Because the North, it was mostly about being, freedom of slavery and all that stuff was happening. Okay. Now, she was born enslaved in Georgia, forced to march more than 1,700 miles, and who in 1856 won her freedom in a Los Angeles courtroom. She became a midwife, investor, and philanthropist, founding the first AME church and buying property in what is now downtown LA. So some people don't understand. There's Los Angeles County and then there's Los Angeles, the city. When you go to different counties here, and some people have geography issues, right? Like, again, I'm so glad I had some good teachers growing up. I'm so glad that I paid attention in class because it's not hard to understand geography if you're paying attention and understanding what a state is and a country versus counties and then cities within that county. When we vote, sometimes after every 4 years, when national voting happening, some news channels will have shown like different counties, like if they're turning red or blue, so they go deep down just to show the voting outcome or percentages in those specific counties, right? When we're talking about redlining, that's the same thing, getting certain counties to either be blue or red. Okay, so that's kind of how you can see this, right? So when we're talking about downtown LA, we're talking about the city of Los Angeles, okay, versus the Pobladores. I'm sorry, I'm getting like tripped up. I know how to say this. In September 4th of 1781 may have been the founders in Los Angeles County, right? Her triumph was not an anomaly. It was the continuation of a legacy started by those original African founders. From 1781's Pobladores to Biddy Mason's courtroom victory, the evidence is clear. Black Californians did not arrive to benefit from someone else's dream, they created it. California's earliest prosperity, culture, and justice systems were built on the labor and intellect of African descendants long before any other group laid claim to this land. So, again, this was a territory, this was an empire already in California happening through the Spanish. Okay, Mexico wasn't even a thing. So you're even looking at this as Los Angeles was kind of already being built prior to this country of Mexico even being a country, right? Even being the name called Mexico or El Salvador or Venezuela. You already have this happening and taking place prior to a claim that the land was someone else's, even Texas, right? But again, I'm just going to focus on California for now. So this already gives stake to when we're looking at the bill SB 518, if this agency is going back this far to look at this stuff. And I don't even know if they are. I don't even know if they are. And then when you do, what type of restorative justice are you asking for? Are you just asking for people to get money off their land, right? Are you asking for that stuff? Because the land wasn't given to people through war. It was given because of policies, because of displacement of black people, because of the discrimination that was happening in this country. And that's why it's important that when people come here and say they want to be legalized here or naturalized here, they got to understand what took place, right? And you have people that are aware of that, right? And they're not here to displace people, but other people see what's happening themselves, and they can be from some of the Latin American countries as well. Now, what's huge about California? One huge industry is the agricultural land. So this is before the flood of immigrants. Okay. Now, when we talk about immigrants coming in on the East Coast, we're talking about more European immigrants or some Asian immigrants coming in from the East Coast, coming to the South. So there was a time where there was this flood. So, and when you think about New York, in California, we're probably the most diverse areas other than Texas. Texas may, but I see Texas as more of a black, white, and then you have Hispanics, down there as well, or Latin Americans. I'll just say that, and you have them down there as well. But that's really what I see those areas as. But California is really known for its agricultural industry. Like I said, California is huge. Okay, so Los Angeles and San Francisco, you won't see a lot of agriculture around those areas. But when you go further out, maybe going towards the coast, you'll see the ranches still. If you go cut through the Central Valley, going through the 99, you'll see a lot of the agricultural fields out there. Um, but again, before the immigrant flood, before Cesar Chavez, before all of that, it was different. And you can find old videos and documentary about these areas as well. Now, before corporate agriculture and imported labor reshaped the valley, black farmers worked the soil of California with ownership and pride. From the 1850s through the early 1900s, freedmen and their families established farms from Tulare to Kern County, carving livelihoods out of the same earth that built the state's food empire. But opportunity was short lived. County land offices quietly refused to record deeds for black settlers, forcing many to buy property under white proxies. When Colonel Allen Allensworth founded his namesake farming town in 1908, the first self-sustaining black agricultural colony, west of the Mississippi. State officials diverted its irrigation water to neighboring white growers. So, as you see, land here was already been cultivated by black people, freed black people, before the immigrant floods and before people saying, oh, we grow the fruits that y'all eat and we're gonna leave and what are you gonna do now? Like, we still have black farmers. We still have them, even though they've been displaced. We still have a lot of that stuff. Black people have not forgotten about agriculture. When you go to Africa and different areas in Africa, they still focus on agriculture. Chinese or Asian countries, agriculture is just a thing, right? But again, you have newcomers believing that they contributed to an area that was already cultivated. It was already happening, right? Only thing that was changing is that you had black and white still having issues, still bumping heads, right? And because whites were in power, they affected what black people could and could not get and can easily try to displace them, bringing in labor, right? So within 2 decades, the fields dried up and the dream of a black agrarian stronghold in California was left to dust. Now, discrimination only deepened as policy evolved. Racial covenants barred black families from buying irrigated acreage, and the state's own agricultural boards withheld loans and water rights under the guise of acreage minimums. When World War II arrived, Sacramento backed the Bracero program, subsidizing large growers who replaced citizen farmers with imported labor. So here comes World War II. And this is where, again, women were trying to work in industries. A lot of changes were happening because we were, as Americans, were going to help the Jewish pretty much to be free. So that took some of the men out of the country, right? Black and white men predominantly, and there was other cultures, but predominantly the military made up of black and white men. Okay, so because of you know white ownership and displacing through policies or making up stuff to displace black people, to me still doesn't mean imported labor or people who claim that this was Mexico's land have any establishment here. There's nothing you truly built without someone helping you. As again, this program, Bracero program, subsidized large growers who replaced citizen farmers, meaning this was the early stage of Americans being displaced by imported labor. So someone got a hand up, right? While independent black farmers were denied cooperative memberships and access to state credit. So again, economically being oppressed further, and then the displacement saying to keep you further economically suppressed, we're going to bring in cheaper labor, and we're going to because again when you're talking about 18, I would say 1856, slavery was really ending. When we talking about the freedoms, the free slaves, and I guess when we're talking about Texas was one of the last areas where people are celebrating the end of slavery. It should be something to celebrate here. I think it should be something just as big as the 4th of July here, because white Americans should celebrate the fact that we no longer deal with slaves here. You know what I'm saying? And people who are against it needs to understand why we don't no longer want slaves here. We don't even think about cheap labor. And even when blacks were free, the labor was so damn cheap, or the pay was so damn cheap that people still couldn't live. They still couldn't get a hand up. Women were barely feeding their kids. They would have to leave their little children and go out and work. You had a lot of that stuff happening. And again, some people got a hand up, but it doesn't mean that you came here willingly to build on America. Okay. So by the 1980s, fewer than 500 black-owned farms, remained in the entire state. California did not lose its black farmers by accident. So here we go. None of this is by accident. It legislated them out through neglect, red tape, and redirected resources. And we're seeing that today. Again, if I go through 2008 up until today, you can see that there were still programs, a pivot, a huge pivot, more than ever, towards the imported labor and immigrant community that came here. And I'm not just saying it's Hispanics, you have Asians, you have all type of immigrants coming in here and being able to take over lands through policies to hold back black people. Why was that? Was it we're being innovative because you have a lot of black ingenuity that was happening? And this was even before the 1900s. A lot of that was happening. A lot of the things that are being used, even still widely today, were from the minds of a African American. Not from some immigrant, not from somebody who's coming here and saying, "Yo, I have these irrigation systems." Irrigation was already a thing. All these things were already a thing, right? It's just been enhanced over time. Okay. So, what began as blocked access became deliberate disposition, setting the stage for the theft that followed. Okay. Now, again, our governor should already know this stuff, you know, and this is why Americans are pissed off. I'm just telling you, this is why. Let's talk about the theft of black land and wealth. So this is what this bill, SB 518, is, I guess, trying to go after. But again, I think it's a slap in the face because I don't think it's just about land. I think it's about policies when we're talking about labor and jobs, when we're talking about economic opportunities, when we're talking about crime being rampant, as if they just want black people to kill each other instead of just taking those criminals and locking them the hell up. And who gives a damn about their mama? wanting their sons to be free, who gives a damn about other counterparts talking as if they want other black dudes to be free and they're criminals. All this stuff was just out of control, out of hand. And then you had the crack era. You had all that stuff happening that unfortunately, black people, we dropped the ball on that too. Like you dropped the ball, you did, and you continued to do it, right? And I feel like maybe that the millennial class was another progression of black people when we were being pushed to go to college, right? Get better jobs. And us as millennials, we are in that arena, but we're still being affected by not getting the business loans. Our neighborhoods being overran by immigrant businesses more than black businesses, right? I don't think it's an issue of black people aren't doing or going for those things. I think it's an issue of our government is focused on non-Americans, and that's why Americans in general are pissed off about that. So let's talk about this a little bit more. From the Great Depression through the 1990s, discriminatory lending and zoning systematically stripped Black Californians of property. Banks redlined our neighborhoods, labeling them hazardous. The FHA refused to insure our mortgages. When urban renewal arrived, bulldozers replaced family homes with freeways and office towers. Generations of equity vanished overnight, and with it, the security that ownership brings. Now, again, all of this is compounding upon black people through legal actions, through actions the governors, the state assembly boards and committees and councils, came together at during these times, and they're still doing it now to further oppress black people. And the reason some things are happening is because of that. Now, because of poverty, there's poverty all around the world, right? But even in some of those areas, their crime is not crazy like it is here. Okay, so I'm not ever going to excuse criminal activity. I don't care who it is. I don't really like criminals like that. I just think I don't have sympathy for them because you can make better choices. There's so many people that make better choices and could choose to do the wrong thing, but you just make the choice to do it for some odd reason, right? You let yourself be programmed, or some type of puppet master, runs you compared to people who don't allow things like that to run them, right? So we can tell that a lot of this land, a lot of the farmland and jobs and opportunities and all that stuff that was happening when we talk about redlining in neighborhoods, all that stuff is happening in a state. Again, this is not, I'm just focused on California, but this definitely happens in other states in America. So when people talk about there's no such thing as racism or any of that, I like to say, let's go to the laws, let's go to the policies, because it's different from someone just calling you something, a racial name, or doing something to antagonize you because they have a low IQ mindset to be racist or whatever they want to feel like for that day. Um, it's different from that compared to people literally coming together in our government system to affect your livelihood, right? And I believe, I think it was black women who were trying to even tell our counterparts, yo, the immigrants that are coming in are affecting your job. So you getting pissed off at black women for taking advantage of education and finding a way to continue to push forward, that has nothing to do with you. It is your fault, right? It is you who didn't continue to fight. There's other counterparts who have shown that they're going to continue to fight, but it is you who allowed the displacement, who allowed yourself to be defeated in a way that you wanted your women to feel the same way. You wanted your women to feel that instead of just fighting alongside with them to continue to have gains. And because of those things that happen, the education continues to dwindle. You have a lot of emotional people, right, who are attacking you, black women, on your education, just because you stand up for yourself, just because you won't let somebody talk to you in the way that they want to talk to you. You got people that think they're trying to tell you how to live and how to do things, and you're probably more genius than them, than they could ever dream of. You got a lot of that stuff happening. but also when they're dealing with lower class of black people, I feel like that's why also they're used to a certain um stereotype of black people, that some black women around them who has a job and she does her job well and she works hard, and or she may have a, be a single mom or whatever that case, we still have shown that regardless of the stereotypes, we still have fought through and worked for the longest time. Okay. But when laws and stuff are displacing black people in general, right, there's an issue. Like when it comes to crime, you know, I don't think it was about targeting black men specifically, because there's not a lot of criminals who are just innocent. I think even a more liberal or democratic media promotes that, black men have been dealing with issues that when it comes to crime, but black women aren't dumb, black children aren't dumb, and some of these guys, or maybe the guys who are arrested, they have been involved in crime. Now, are there innocent people? Hell yeah, right? But I don't think it's a majority. I don't think it's like 50% of black guys that are just innocent who are in jail. Like, no. Why? Because some just continue to have a defeated mindset and say, "Hey, I'm just going to continue to commit crimes. I'm going to do whatever I want to do." Right? You have black women have the same mindset who are in that lower class thought process or mindset. Because some of us, we don't even have to be in lower class. It's just the mindset of poverty, the mindset of doing the wrong thing, the mindset of I'm defeated, so everyone else got to be defeated around me, right? The crabs in a barrel effect, all of that stuff. When we have educated people, people who understand their country, um, we can pull out these things and say, yo, Governor Newsom, we don't want just an SB 518 for restorative justice from the past. We want you to look at this timeline so that you cut off people who ain't even from here. They need to go back. You need to participate with the federal government, with ICE. You need to crack down on crime in all your neighborhoods. You need to ensure that there's auditing that's taking place in labor camps or jobs, because even some of these people that come in deal with horrendous labor issues, right? And that's because some of them don't understand you need to become legalized. You need to do that so that you can take advantage of the labor laws that Americans fought for, our HR departments. When you're talking about HR, or hazardous stuff on the job, or proper ways to handle stuff, hygiene, all that stuff, is because Americans said we're going to continue to get better and better at how we do business here, right? Other countries, they don't have that shit, or they're trying to mirror what we do over here. Okay. Now, meanwhile, the same state that denied us credit extended opportunity to newcomers. And we've seen that. Again, I start with 2008, but we've seen that in our modern times happening. Okay, so this is why if you're going to put out SB 518, you need to make sure this agency, whoever these people are, needs to not be lenient. They can't be going at this trying to be nice. They got to say this is what it is. They got to be like, forget who is against it. This is what it is. Y'all got handouts. Y'all got help. So to me, there's nothing truly American about you, in my opinion. Undocumented residents receive legal aid, small business support, and now even health care benefits our elders never saw. Okay. The pattern is unmistakable. The state rewards arrival but punishes endurance. Black women, you have been enduring for the longest time. And your federal government, I would say the current federal government is trying to fix it, but your government here in California is, to me, just trying to put on his face so he can either run for to be the president or whatever he's trying to do. But it's like the things you're doing, is not getting to the nitty gritty stuff. You don't give a damn about Americans, because if you did, you would say, I'm rescinding this sanctuary state law, this ordinance, this executive order. I'm rescinding it. That is a first step with this SB 518, in my opinion, to have the governor rescind the sanctuary state and city laws. Like, that shows you actually give a damn, right? And then if this change in Supreme Court about birthright citizenship happened, that's another thing you need to rescind. Education, all these other things you need to rescind and be like, yo, in order for you to make it, you need to come through the correct legal channels, and your community can raise the funds for yourself, right? Just like Black Americans have to do and had to do, right? When I see new clinics and restaurants and all that propped up, I can only think some type of funding, some money has supported these people, right? Now, true progress cannot coexist with historic theft left unaddressed. If California can calculate aid for those who cross its borders, it can calculate restitution for those who built its foundation. Okay. So I feel the governor needs to rescind the sanctuary state ordinance, order, executive order, or any law. He needs to participate with ICE. He needs to ensure that there's audits that are happening. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into this as we go. But these things have to go away with. You just do, because you're not showing us that California gives a damn about the American. That's really what you're showing us, right? Now let's talk about the cost of sanctuary. I did speak about sanctuary cities in my previous presentation, just to kind of focus on sanctuary cities. But this is just going to focus on, again, California and how the modern sanctuary state law affected Black people even more, okay, even more than what it did. Now, I have people that I went to high school with and went to college with in other states, but I know all of us were, to me, I expected a little intelligent or smart, right? But when I see them as we got older, you know, you got our counterparts want to promote families, but they're still not getting the gains to acquire and build with the resources for the Black community. We can't reward two people over here and two people over there and two people up there and be like, see, look what we're doing. This is what I'm saying. If you're focusing on policy changes and things that affected the general population, then you can say, we're not doing as well as we thought we were, as well as what we believe we are, right? I remember a time we had more churches and liquor stores in our community, especially when you're talking about like Los Angeles. That was kind of a spoken thing. How it's just liquor stores and churches. The Black community fell upon this religion uh, coping mechanism for centuries, that you still haven't seen anything God has done for you in general. But you got other communities that believe in Christianity and they're getting everything that they want or desire or quote unquote prayed for. But you're still suffering. You're dealing with health issues, crime issues, homelessness, labor issues. You're still dealing with it. And you're hoping one day some God returns and is going to restore justice to you. That will never happen if you don't pay attention and move the way you need to move. Meaning, um, politics should be something talked about in your household, and everybody doesn't have to agree on the same policies or politics, but that has to be a thing in your household, right? So you can understand, discuss it, debate it, right? So that when you are informed, you can vote better for yourself. Black women, okay? Your kids should understand that. Your kids need to be focused in school. You need to stop going up there mad at the teachers. Back in the day when I was growing up, to me, parents, and I can just say maybe from my community, they worked with the teachers, right? Like it was a thing. You do not want your mom or your dad being called if you was acting up. You could try to act up as soon as your mama and daddy was called. You was a whole different kid. But you don't have that today because, and again, I'm talking about us as millennials as well. Did we give up somewhere? What happened to us? Right? Because some of these kids are coming from our generation. We're not taking education serious for our children enough, right? You got people coming here learning a second language and getting the help politically through economics and all that stuff to overrun you. When you look at the wealth gap, again, you got mostly an immigrant ran community here whose wealth is slightly moving above yours now. And you are Americans at that. Like, y'all got to get with the program. Now, the purpose of government is to protect its citizens first. But under this administration, compassion has become a political costume, one that looks noble from afar but conceals economic abandonment underneath. And, you know, I, let's talk about the economic abandonment. When we're talking about homelessness, when we're talking about people who are undocumented or don't have the proper work authorizations, being able to work in jobs that they shouldn't even be privy to, you have that happening, and you're being displaced. You got people trying to turn up their noses to you, like, I don't know. I ain't gonna say it's a lot of Hispanic women, but I've had probably randomly two or three Hispanic women that I know that ain't even from this country. I can tell you're not even from this country, and you're turning your nose up at me like, lady, I'm running laps around you, easy. Easy, right? Because I'm an actual engineer. I'm an actual innovator. I actually represent an American here in this country, right? I'm not just speaking on things I don't know. I'm not just speaking because I'm so emotional about it, right? I don't allow my emotions as a woman to take over for me. Do I get frustrated, angry, want to cry at times? Yes, but I personally don't allow that to affect me like it may affect a lot of other African Americans, right? Now, the purpose of this government is to protect its citizens first. So we see California has not done that in a couple of decades. Not only during Newsom's term, but Governor Jerry Brown's term as well. But Newsom is the one who it helped to enact the sanctuary state law out of some crazy thing, right? Now, I was cool with Newsom, but I remember when he wanted to change up the death penalty. Again, I'm not religious. I do not think of religion as some type of fairy land and love this and love that. When you actually understand religion and the Bible per se, there was a lot of vicious things that was taking place. So if I was to be religious, like a lot of people still wouldn't, they wouldn't like me because, I even do it today. Like I will try to come in on a comment or whatever to let someone know, like, nope, that's not true. Go read your scripture or whatever. Don't try to use it as is, love this and love that. Like this, your God is the same, right? So I personally believe in the death penalty, and I also believe in pro-choice, right? I don't see death as this immoral thing as some people may see. When people are committing crimes against someone violently to kill them, I think it should be a return. I don't think I should have any empathy or sympathy for them because again, a lot of people can control themselves. They just choose not to. A lot of people have gotten away with just being able to murder. Or again, when your country is not taking mental health seriously, and you have a lot of men that are continuing to commit crimes, that have been committing crimes for forever now, but you're not looking at them to say, yo, you need to talk to somebody so you can get some help. And they're more focused on feminism, doing something to taking some rights away, which they can never prove. It's just about them feeling that they need some type of dominance, but not understanding natural order. Again, when you have a system over time manipulating you, you can never see it, right? Some people get it, and those are the people I believe that, the Bible scripture that says there's a narrow gate that only some people will understand. That's what I believe. Some people will only understand it because some epiphany happened, some understanding clicked for them, that they no longer think that way. Their mind became renewed, right? And you can continue to renew your mind. There's a lot of smart men out here who don't align with that. But then you have the culture of men, unfortunately, that will attack them for being different, from being elevated more than them. So until that culture is dealt with, is going to continue to happen. And that's the same what we see Black women with the injustice through policy, through government's actions that allow people to come here and get this quote unquote American dream that they truly didn't work for. They truly didn't. It was handed over to them. I remember this one guy. I was cool with people because I was in Santa Barbara for a while, and I remember this one family. They were Hispanic because again, I'm cool with a lot of people if they're cool with me. But it was the pride and speaking as if, because his people currently isn't were in the fields, that he had a sense of pride about that, and the way he was expressing it. But what I already knew, I didn't try to get no arguments with them because I knew they're going off emotion, they're going off of what someone told them. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of Black people were already here doing that stuff. It was just our laws and policies and the issues between Black and white Americans allowed for the influx of your people to come here and be in agriculture first. And then they said, okay, well, we'll open the doors for other stuff for you. When that should have never been the case, right? So, I just have a different perspective. I'm not trying to hate on him or how he feels about it, but I should feel the same way, right? Like, no, you are only able to touch those fruits. You're only able to grow on that land because some policy, some government brought you in and they lied to you, right? They wanted to use your cheap labor. They wanted to exploit you and tell you that you can't go home at night, tell you you have to sleep on the farm here, tell you that if you don't work for me 16, 20 hours a day, you're lazy, telling you all these things. And you took it and accepted it as something to be prideful about versus understanding that slavery has been here in America and it's been for a while. So that's what some people are, and I would say some Black people, maybe what they need to articulate better is that, yo, America still has this underlying slave mentality that this is what's happening to y'all. And they're looking to give you guys things or open doors for you when, again, you have not truly worked for it in the capacity that Black people had to work for it. Okay. And you come here with the idea that Black people are lazy, but you got to understand these people, our ancestors, our parents and grandparents, they all came from a different era where it's undeniable about what took place. It's undeniable, right? You weren't getting tortured as much as African Americans. There's no real laws or policies that truly cut you off. Now, I know there's some probably for Asians and stuff like that, but there's really no true laws or any policies that affected any other community more than the Black American community. And that's just why this bill, SB 518, is a slap in the face if he's not going to rescind this sanctuary state bullshit or any other federal funds or state funds that are going to these communities and not supporting the entrepreneurship of Black women, not supporting the education of Black women, right? He can do that, but he chooses to support people who just got here a generation or two ago and they still don't even speak English, changing up job opportunities and stuff that you got to speak another language in America, right? This is why it's not just Black people, but Americans are frustrated, right? Because you're saying, yo, you're trying to change what made United States come together, even though it was some torturous things and some crazy shit that happened. There was a lot of innovation and things that came out of America which changed the whole entire world. Okay. So real equity requires hierarchy of duty. A state must secure its own before it extends a hand abroad. California has not done that. They have not fixed that. Governor Newsom can try to fix it now. He can fix it now. California's leaders have reversed that order, and the result is a sanctuary for everyone except those who already paid the price of belonging. Okay. Now, let's look at crime, lawlessness, and no cash bail. So I spoke about some of these things before, but I have to continue to bring this up in certain presentations so we can see how things are related to each other. Okay? No cash bail was marketed as justice reform, but in California, it has become permission for chaos. Offenders walk free within hours while victims live in fear for years. Shop owners board their windows. Families avoid downtown streets. Black businesses in South LA absorb losses they can't insure. The governor calls this compassion, yet compassion without boundaries becomes cruelty. This is why Americans in California, again, this is all over, because you got other red states and people talking about the crime, not excusing that they have the same shit happening in their areas. But when you see this, and then the media is portraying this, um, it makes it seem that your governor doesn't give a damn, because being compassionate for a criminal, like, come on, why was that happening? Why did that even happen, knowing that in certain communities, crime ain't going to go down like that, or the type of crime, right? Because again, it's not absolving other communities like white Republican areas. It's not saying that they don't have uh, domestic violence stuff happening, theft. It may not be where in their minds they think violent crimes and robberies, what they see through the media, it happens to them through insurance companies, medical insurance companies, people within their business stealing money, lying for funds, fraud happening. These are still categories of crime that is taking place. But when we're talking about violent crime, the country doesn't like that, right? The country in general doesn't like that. School shootings, shooting up just people, like, regardless whether they're at a funeral or whether they're at a event in Las Vegas. Like, this is happening. Crime is an issue with men in general, right? But when your government and your federal government is not cracking down on it and allowing it to just be whatever it is, you got homelessness, you got people that can't afford to pay the insurance, and the insurance is to help them rebuild. You got all this stuff continuing to cause economic pressure, specifically on Black women and our businesses. This is why your voting matters. This is why you can't let a bill like SB 518 be some type of symbolic significance of some type of change because they gave you an inch. You got to demand more. You got to say, this homelessness, this crime, we don't want gang members around us. You need to officially, I feel like if the government, federal government, officially says, hey, we are going to put every gang in America under the Terrorism Act, then it can change, right? It can truly change if they do that. But no, you have some people want to give a heads up to gang members to not act up because the National Guard is coming. And it's like, no, let them act up. Let them continue to do what they did. Because if these people leave, they're going to probably more than likely return back to the degenerate nature that they've been doing. And that's going to lead to more of your businesses not progressing, more of the loans and redlining, and all this stuff is going to happen. This displacement is happening because of those issues, regardless if you want to believe it or not, regardless if you want to see it as racism or not. This is literally what's affecting you, Black women. And you continue to allow it because you feel you need certain counterparts to be here. And it's like, no, you're screwing up the church's money. You really are, right? And we can't have governors compassionate about criminals. We can't have them saying we are not, I don't feel the death penalty. I feel it's inhumane or blah, blah, blah. Was it inhumane when that man killed that little girl? Was it inhumane then? Why do you have compassion for him? You know, I'm sorry. I don't, if it was God, God would have been turned some of these people into dust. I'm telling y'all, he would have been set a fire to people. He would have been sent people in to destroy. If you really understood the characteristics of y'all's God. And we're not talking about Jesus, the Christ. We're talking about the God of the Bible, the I am. That's literally the name of the God of the Bible, the I am, right? So you have all of it. That's why I don't believe the death penalty should be thrown out. Like, I'm sorry, I don't believe morally those type of morals like y'all. Now, true justice balances mercy with responsibility. It is not racist to demand safety, Black women. It is rational. A government that refuses to enforce its own laws abandons its moral authority. So when we're talking about police and law enforcement, we have to ensure that they're moving with integrity, that they want to stop criminals in your community, not because they're meeting some dude and your dude automatically want to say these dudes are racist because they took him down because he was given commands repeatedly and he still refused to do as they said, right? Still refused it, still wanted to make shit happen. You can go look at tons of these videos. You don't have to lie about them. You can see them from start to finish. And I'm glad we have cameras because now, Black women, if some of your counterparts are lying or not. You can see some of them are lying and putting a racist identity on people who are just here to fucking do clean up the crime because that's their job, right? So it's not irrational when that happens. You can't be dealing with abuse and then try to protect your abuser when men and women come in to take care of that for you, to remove that from you so that you can heal and have a better life for yourself. And if you have kids, have a better life for yourself and your children. But your refusal, your irrational thought process allows this person to overrun your life and they're running it down to the ground because they're still affecting your money, regardless if you want to believe it or not. They are affecting your money. A government that refuses to enforce its own laws abandons its moral authority. If Sacramento can track carbon emissions and recycling rates, it can track repeat offenders and violent crime. And this is what we see in California. They're worried about the environment, they're worried about all these other things because they promote it a lot, but they're not focused on the violent crime. Why does California have the most gang members out of all of the states? Like the most homelessness out of all of the states. That's a damn issue. That means you need to crack the fuck down and stop playing with people's lives. They're literally playing with your life. And you are so numb to it, you don't even care, Black women. You're not showing that you care at least. And when Black women who are stepping up to say that we give a damn, you want to tear them down. You want to attack them. Until leadership restores order, the promise of justice will ring hollow, and the communities hit hardest will continue to bleed in silence. That's literally what's happening to your community, Black women. So I'm showing you the layer upon layer upon layer through my presentations of the issues that you can see through policy changes, you can see through intent, you can see these things that have been affecting you, and we can get rid of them. We got to be allies with other Americans. You can't see everybody as right. Some people really give a damn about you. I know you don't care. I know you don't think that, but some people really give a damn about you. That they're sick of the shit. They're sick of fucking seeing videos of you being abused. They're sick of seeing videos of people getting shot up trying to bury their loved ones. They are sick of that shit. Just as much as you have your counterparts trying to pretend like they're sick of school shootings and stuff. Like, if you be real with yourself, if they were sick of all that shit, they would fix it in their community. They wouldn't fix it by, oh, I'm going to go talk to this brother, or I'm going to go get them in some type of sports, or I'm not really going to tell them about sexual responsibility so they don't keep making baby mamas in our community. instead of just siding with people to blame women and not understanding how health, mental health, the environment, how that affects even a single mom. When they're not focused on these things, when they're not gathering resources, fighting for those resources, showing up, you're doing it mostly by yourself. Let's get into homelessness and the great displacement. Walk beneath any freeway in Los Angeles or Oakland, and you'll see the consequence of a government that funds everything except stability. Black Californians are less than 6% of the population, but nearly 40% of the homeless. That number isn't an accident, it's a policy outcome. Decades of redlining, predatory lending, and neglect housing programs push families from homes to shelters and shelters to the street. Billions are spent every year on homelessness, yet those billions never reach the people most displaced. I think in LA, if I recall, there was like 125 million given back, and that was supposed to be for the homeless. Like, what are you doing? Then they wanted to build these little homeless huts along beaches, in areas where I think you need to work to even live in those areas. First off, not only that, why are you? It's middle class people or people who have homes in other areas of Los Angeles or Los Angeles County, and you're telling these people who are homeless you deserve a beachfront. Like the decisions that were even being made were mindless, were crazy. California has land still, like we are so big, we still got land that hasn't even been built on. You can go out to like San Bernardino areas, Riverside area. You can go out in all those areas, Palmdale, what's that other area? Not just Palmdale, but pretty much like if you're heading towards the south or east coast, let's just say if you're heading towards those areas, there's a lot of open land, and these people still want to build in cities where there's billions of people, millions of people, an influx of people just coming into. Like it's insane. It's insane. That means why is the government sending money specifically to certain cities and not developing in other areas to even help with the rent crisis? To me, the rent crisis is because you got everybody who want to live in LA. So of course the rent gonna go up. Of course that's gonna happen. Then you have illegal practices in housing. So it's not just you talking about rent pricing and rent going up. It's is the government even looking at the housing crisis, the rental crisis, the practices? Because some people are homeless because people are practicing illegal fraud and stuff. They're just doing that. They're getting buildings and telling other people that you can't belong in my building because of your credit score. But this person is a working American. This person may have had it hard, but moving up. They're probably not even on food stamps or any welfare. But this is why they get denied. But if we don't have a government that's focused on the things that are affecting Americans and the Black Americans specifically, then it's going to affect all other Americans because you want to bring in everybody else. In some of these neighborhoods, I mean, they gotten trashy. When I mean trashy, it's like you brought all these people in just to dirty shit up more than ever. Homelessness is California's mirror. It reflects what the state refuses to fix. When the governor announces new funding, contractors celebrate while communities see no change. There is no audit, no transparency, no lineage based accountability. The crisis will not end until California recognizes homelessness among Black residents as an emergency born out of economic theft, not personal failure. Repair housing and you repair hope. Again, there's no reason for SB 518 to be anything about restorative justice if your governor is not going to focus on what he could fucking see with his damn eyes. He sees it with his eyes. or he chooses to not see it. These are little things that he can do. Let's go to education and the ESL crisis. Once, California's public schools were engines of upward mobility. Today, they are battlegrounds of cultural displacement. ESL programs command billions, diverting funds from majority black schools that already struggle with outdated textbooks and teacher shortages. When every new policy prioritizes translation over transformation, native English speaking students are left behind. And this is what's been happening. This is why some people do not even understand anything about America. They learn English as a second fucking language, people. Black people, you've been learning, regardless of your ebonics, regardless of all of that stuff, we speak English here. Sometimes, and again, I don't like when certain Karens and white people attack other people and say you got to speak English here. But a part of that is true. If she's going in, or if any of us is going in as Americans to a business just to patron it, that means we're already supporting you because we showed up in your business. We've already supporting you, but you're speaking a whole different language. That's an issue that California has allowed to happen, and the federal government has allowed to happen. So this is why, again, for every action there is a reaction. This is why the current president said, "Hey, English is the main language of the country because y'all are giving away jobs that Americans could take, but you're telling Americans they have to speak another language." Speaking another language was just an elective in high school, something you just wanted to do, not something you had to do, right? But because of that, this is why some of your elementary schools and your junior highs are failing because now the English speaking students, the ones who should be moving forward, the ones who probably are geniuses and all that, they have to now get pushed back further because it was once, hey, they got to have these ESL classes, but now they have them where everybody's in the same class. So now you got to wait for somebody else to catch up. They ain't even from your country. You had New York allow a lot of migrants to come in, or quote unquote asylum seekers to come in, telling them they got to be in school. They all speak different languages, meaning you're telling an English speaking teacher that they got to know how to work with these students, meaning they have to take their time and focus on them and learn everybody's language all at once in a classroom that maybe 25 to 30 to 50 fucking students. Like, your sanctuary cities, your sanctuary states weren't even prepared. They must have thought in their minds, oh, only 1 million is going to come. Maybe 500,000 is going to come. But no, some of them expected other states who knew what this would cost, who knew the funding and the resources it would soak up if you allowed people who didn't come in the right way, who didn't become legalized, to take over. Because the funding has to get to them some way, or you're handing out work permits for jobs they haven't even been trained for. And then if they're not, what you're going to do is clean out the Americans. This is literally why some Americans are pissed off and the reason why Republicans won. This is why they won. So, black women, you got to wake up. It is not about racism and stuff all the time. Are there racist people? Yes. I am never going to agree that racism is not here in America. Like, I am not, uh, I don't try to move with no integrity, right? I don't move with being brainless like that. Like, some people want you to think that way and they'll try to do something against you that's racist. So no, and then we can see through these policies that are still on the books, that are still affecting you. Like, regardless of these people being brown or coming from other countries, it's still a racist act to push back black people and economically suppress them through these actions. Yes, it is. And then you got people from the other side is saying, yo, y'all keep voting this way. Y'all, that means y'all must want this to happen. Even though those people don't see black people like myself and other people who are saying, yo, we've been sounding an alarm on this shit. We've been trying to talk to people who got mad at us, who I guess wanted to have whatever the bits and pieces. Like some of y'all, they can have way more, but they just choose to have little. And I've been around those people and I can't stand it. So after a while, if I'm not influencing you to go get it, then there's no reason for me to be around you. I'm not here to have a pity party for the longest. I'm not here because I don't practice the things that you do that are undisciplined. I don't practice those things. The discipline that I had is why I make over 120, 150 grand now. It's the reason why I'm an engineer now because it took discipline. I had to read a lot. I had to look at a lot of educational videos or courses. I had to do all that. My money, most of my money goes to books, it goes to courses, it goes to stuff that's going to continue to allow me to enhance myself as an American. But when you're around people who don't think of that, who can't say, "Yo, I'm just going to put a drink down. I don't need to go out every day. I don't need to go to a restaurant or whatever. I don't need to do all that." When you don't have that, it's because you're disciplined. You're failing yourself. But again, a lot of you black women who are running a business, who went out and got your education and got your degrees, you've already shown yourself. You've proven to yourself that you can be disciplined. Some of you did it and had kids. Some of you did it, had abusive relationships. Some of you did it with all that shit that was going on around you, and you still made a way and you were disciplined enough. And let me tell you, that's the same thing that your ancestors before you dealt with. It was way worse, way worse. We're not dealing with things in that way. We're dealing with now having to focus on what's these policies, what's really good. That's the difference between us, especially as millennial women. That's what we have to focus on. If we really want to fight, we can't be listening to counterparts who want you to do stuff and be okay with certain stuff. We can't listen to counterparts that don't know the landscape themselves, that don't understand what's going on, and just emotional more than you sometimes, and attack you, campaign against you. They do all that against you. And then you go into these fields and you move with no integrity yourself. You did all that work to demean and dumb yourself down, and we got shit like this happening in your education system, pushing your kids further back. When every new policy prioritizes translation over transformation, native English speaking students are left behind. The academic gap widens, and the very children whose ancestors built California's education system are now treated as statistical afterthoughts. Like I said, I had some of the best damn teachers starting out. I was already reading at an eighth grade level, and I was in what, first, second, or third grade. You know what I'm saying? I was already reciting. They gave me um, uh, the inspiration, to speak in front of people. Like I'm not afraid to talk in front of people. I'm reserved to myself because I'm not someone who needs to be like just extra in front of people. But they've empowered me a lot. I've had a lot of speaking engagements where I spoke. I remember on Dr. King's Day, I have people who love my voice because I'm clear, I'm able to articulate myself. I have all of that, but I've been around Black people, probably in the lower class, who also have certain thought processes about other Black people, where now we've allowed things to manipulate us and attack each other's education, attack the things that our ancestors have already built, have already tried to push. When your mom or your dad and your grandparents and your great grandparents um, sound like they're not as educated, trust me, they fought for you to get to that point so you can go out and make something of yourself. But when you come back and they're expecting you to dumb yourself down or thinking you're too better than them, you gotta cut that. You gotta cut it off. That means they lost their way. They became defeated. Education should be the great equalizer, not the new frontier of inequity. Renaming historically black schools to erase their legacy under the banner of diversity is cultural vandalism. Restoring balance means reinstating funding formulas based on need, not narrative. California must teach its children truth, both in curriculum and practice, or risk producing a generation fluent in slogans but illiterate in justice. Meaning, y'all have to step up for the schools in your districts. You have to step up for the African American named schools to not be changed because this new community got handouts, got help to even be here, to even be able to put their children and stuff. And they're still first, second generation, maybe third. You know what I'm saying? Like they just barely coming to this bitch, and you're not taking education seriously. When your community came against you and campaigned against you for education, you should have thought like, man, everything's about to continue to dwindle. That means kids from elementary on up ain't gonna have a chance because this is what we think about education. And then you got people who want you to be dumb just because they feel uncomfortable. Like, then you got other cultures who think they're smarter than you and they just barely learn how to speak English. They still don't even understand what's going on. It's unbelievable. It's disgusting. Now, let's talk about the healthcare and policy neglect. In a state that boasts one of the largest healthcare budgets in America, Black Californians still die younger and sicker than any other group. Maternal mortality among Black women is 4 times higher than among whites. Yet the governor expands Medi-Cal to cover undocumented residents instead of stabilizing clinics that serve our own communities. Public health isn't failing for lack of money, it's failing from misplaced priorities. Why would our government think we got the money to be doing some shit like that? What happened to the black woman who was the Surgeon General? I have questions. Why would that even be something when medical costs, insurance costs is high as hell? Everybody can't even afford Medi-Cal. Well, I ain't gonna say afford it. You can't even get on Medi-Cal, and you're an American. I made too much, but I ended up taking a break from work, and I applied for Medi-Cal. And because I get too much back in my disability, I cannot get Medi-Cal. Meaning it will take from the money that I would need to support myself to pay my bills while I'm on disability. And I can't even get on that shit. I got denied. And I'm a native here. Like, but our governor opened this up. He rescinded it because he had to understand what was coming. He had to understand. Like, ain't no way. They need to go back to where they're from. Go back to your country if you want some medical attention. People fly out from here. Americans fly to other countries because our healthcare system is wrecked. People just hate giving people healthcare. I didn't even like the fact that during the Affordable Care Act era, that if you didn't have medical care, they were going to penalize you. But if you couldn't afford it, why are you penalizing me more? That means they're further putting you in economic disparity, economic debt, because you can't afford to get some medical attention. Like, y'all have to see what's going on here. Instead of focusing on mortality rates of black women in California, instead of saying, yo, we need to make sure our scientists and our doctors here are focused on the Americans. We need to make sure these hospitals aren't sending our black Californians away. We need to make sure we need better medical attention towards them. We need their clinics need to grow in their communities, even if that. We need to make sure we're putting through more black doctors and surgeons and physicians and neurologists and nutritionists. We need to make sure that these people are going to these schools and being able to come through. But if you have governors who are so busy with playing meme games with the president, that means he's not overseeing what he needs to. Then he wants to sign a bunch of shit, which is crazy. To protect what? People that ain't from here? If none of these bills serve Americans, then it's like, dude, you need to go. You need to go. And this is why the Republicans have won. This is why they're going to continue to win, regardless of what people are saying, regardless of all the shit they're saying right now, because some of this shit is ignorant as hell. But I'm telling you, because of their underlying purpose is to serve America, this is why they're going to keep winning. And black people are going to vote Republican. We're registering and we're going to vote Republican. That means Democrats are going to continue to lose until they recognize and realize their mistake in trying to bring in an influx of people, and it's taking out Americans who just want to prosper, who just want to take advantage of the dream, and they want the support of their government to help them out. Public health isn't failing for lack of money, it's failing from misplaced priorities. The priority of the Democratic Party has been on immigrants. There's no way around that. No way they can try to change it. It's literally written in their laws, in their policies, in their executive orders. It's literally written that they said their priority is no longer on you, black women. It's not. When lawmakers celebrate inclusivity while ignoring crisis, they weaponize compassion against the people who need it most. Health justice begins with triage. You treat the bleeding wound before applying lotion everywhere else. California must confront its moral inversion. Aid should begin with those who built the system, not with those who just entered it. Until that reversal happens, every equity press release will read like an obituary. I think more black women are going to vote Republican. I think some of us are going to realize that Democrats have been doing silly shit like signing SB 518 laws, and there's still a lot of shit that they could be rescinding back. Like California should not be a sanctuary state at all. We were we built this together. We can continue to build it together. If you're not opening the doors for opportunity for people and not giving them the training and putting money towards their education, just like you did people who just got here, then of course you're going to see homelessness. Of course you got frustrated and disgruntled people out on these streets. Of course. Now let's talk about the displacement of black workers because this is a good one. California's industries once depended on black excellence. Skilled hands that poured concrete, harvested crops, nursed patients, and built skylines. Those same hands are now locked out. Undocumented and temporary labor has quietly replaced citizens in construction, agriculture, and service work because it is cheaper, unregulated, and politically convenient. The result is a silent purge of black workers who can't compete against a system that refuses to enforce its own hiring laws. Now, you have some black people talking about, oh, well, I got my people still working and blah, 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 because, the government ain't, took jobs from everybody. Yeah, because you got, again, your counterparts who were campaigning against you, meaning they were celebrating the fact that federal jobs were black women have left, yet it didn't say all other jobs. Like this is how ignorant some of them are, right? But the fact that other black people and black women have been saying, yo, every time these immigrants come in here, they've been displacing you. Now you ain't even in construction. We barely see you out here. And if you are, sometimes you only holding a sign up. Like we don't see you out here. So we know you're not working, and you got too many men relying on women with their own homes, getting on their leases or just living in their homes. You got too much of that going on. So we know you're not working. You borrowing your girl's car. We know you're not working. You're asking her for loans. We know you're not working. But again, they're campaigning, they're promoted, they've been manipulated, even. I don't really care, but being manipulated to go out here and lift up other communities that got help or continue to prosper under policy changes, meaning black women, you've been dealing with stuff. So I don't even understand how some of them just think that you got handouts. Like, what kind of mess is that? When I'm showing you policies and stuff, specifically in California, but this is all over the U.S., that affected your community. So where's the handout? I don't understand. Where is that coming from? And you allow that to manipulate you, to tell you your hard work, your discipline means absolutely nothing because you ain't got a man. We focused on having a man who didn't have a job, who didn't want to work hard, who was defeated mentally. This is why you're important in these conversations, black women. This is why you're important when it comes to voting, when it comes to how you move, your economics, your children, your health. It's important because if no one else is going to stand with you, you got to stand for yourself. So you may see more black women register as Republicans because at least they're showing, yo, we're going to try to give you an opportunity again. We're going to remove these people. We're trying to fix this birthright issue. We're trying to do all this stuff so that we can see you again. Because the Democrats, it's like being hit. You put down something and then you just keep piling stuff on top of it. It could be clothes. It could be dishes. It could be something. You're just piling it on top of it, and you're like, man, where's that? Where's that? Those socks, or where's whatever? Where's Waldo? But you can't find Waldo because they didn't put so much shit on top of Waldo. He's buried underneath there, and that's pretty much what's being attempted here with the current administration. Because California obviously don't care. I really don't see Governor Newsom prospering unless it's people who've been undocumented, who barely came legal. Like, they already probably was seeing that, yo, we got to get these people legalized so that they can vote. So the Republicans knew what they were talking about the entire time. Unfortunately, they had people who couldn't articulate correctly. They got people coming out here who just don't like other black people. They got the wrong people representing them, and this is why they was failing before. Instead of just being straight up, you still got them in the media lying about stuff. You still got them omitting stuff. But the only way they're getting votes and they're getting these things because they had to manipulate people when they could have just continued to just show what was really going on. All things were going to be revealed. Because a lot of people ain't dumb. Americans ain't dumb. Now, those same hands are locked out now. Undocumented and temporary labor has quietly replaced citizens in construction, agriculture, because we talked about agriculture, and service work because it's cheaper, unregulated, and politically convenient. The result is a silent purge of black workers who can't compete against a system that refuses to enforce its own hiring laws. This is why SB 518 needs to not be about some restorative justice only. It needs to be like, yo, y'all need to audit. We need you to be running checks on every California business and their hiring laws. Don't just tell them they got to have certain documents up on their walls. You need, just like LA in certain areas, they check the food service people go in there and check. Y'all need to check that. People out on the street with their carts, they need to be a part of those checks. We know it's probably unhygienic anyway, but y'all allowed it to happen because y'all let them set up anywhere. Now it's third world countries up in this bitch. Like, crazy stuff. We are told the economy is booming, yet our unemployment lines grow longer. So who is the economy booming for if we're not getting the funds? Your businesses aren't getting the funding of black women to build your empires, right? To hire your people and give them high salaries, right? To establish your HR departments, your legal departments, your IT departments. Because again, millennials, we went to school, we learned all these skills. We don't want to be reliant on white people just giving us jobs. We want black empires and businesses to compete against other American businesses like it should be. We want to be competitive, and we want to be the jobs that are competitive. We do. I do. That's the only way you're going to hit these $1 billion, make it fair. That's the only way wealth is going to be fair. All this stuff is going to be fair. But if you're not paying attention and you're voting because you're being manipulated and you're emotional and you're told to think of immigrants and undocumented people as if it's some fucking slavery going on in the past, which is not, is nothing comparable to you, your child getting snatched away from you. It's nothing comparable to you being hanged and your baby being cut from your goddamn stomach or your baby being fed to alligator. It's not the same. Go look at some of those videos of these people coming here during Biden's administration, and they're coming through the border areas where they're not supposed to come through, and look at them offer their children up. That don't look the same. I don't think y'all was off. I don't think our ancestors was offering their kids to be saved by white people during that time. I don't think that's the same. But you allow the media to manipulate you, to influence you to believe that y'all was on the same playing field. And now the healthcare, you got people still acting crazy in the healthcare system. You could probably deal with white women, but you got other people coming in here acting like they higher than you. You've been scientists in this country. You've been physicists. You've been doing that shit in this country. You ain't new to this. You true to this. So who are they to come here and believe that they got a leg up? You know, it shouldn't be a desperate thing for a young black lady to have to work in the healthcare field because she just needs some hours and stuff like that. She needs to feel good that she's going into an industry that is helping people. To feel prideful about being a nurse, being an RN, being a surgeon. She should feel prideful about that stuff. She shouldn't feel any type of way that their counterparts is telling her she shouldn't do that. She needs to worry about a man. Like, come on, what does that got to do with your economic issues that are happening since forever now? You had a man, they had men back then. Where's the change coming from? We got to be real with ourselves. We are told the economy is booming, yet our unemployment lines grow longer. This is not progress, it is economic colonization wearing a liberal smile. Every unverified payroll is a policy failure. Every ignored audit, a confession that the state values exploitation over fairness. And I'm telling y'all, some of these people are being exploited, and it's sad to see. It's sad to hear. And that's why, if we are against slavery, if we're going to talk about enslavement of black people, when I mean we have to be on that tough, like, yo, y'all said slavery was over. That means you should not be bringing people in this country to continue to be slaves because you want cheaper labor. America has progressed so much that we shouldn't have to depend on that. If we're bringing back industry here, certain manufacturing and imports, if we're saying we're taxing those because we want American businesses to do it here, then that means this president is trying to bring back production here because it left because these companies, through certain administrations, and I'm not gonna remove Republicans from it, allow these businesses to leave and not truly still serve the Americans. So now, again, you got the homelessness issue. You got people who can't find good jobs in their cities or states. Their towns are poor as hell. You got a lot of that shit happening to Americans. And then what they say, like California, we're just going to bring in a whole new slot of people and we're going to stand up for their rights more than the rights of the people that was already here that you still haven't fucking helped out. California must restore the right of its native citizens to work in the state they built through enforcement, training, and quarterly oversight that exposes the truth behind every paycheck. California, and I know there's other schools, but we removed, I think I was in 10th grade because we wanted to focus on um, test, exit exams, and all that shit. They started to remove some of the classes that would help provide a skill to a student. So, other than our counterparts, black women, we should have taken advantage of that. Unfortunately, we were young. Our parents may have not understood it. They may have just not fought for it. They may have still was going under oppression economically. They were going through shit themselves. But as millennials, as older millennials now, we can see this and say, "Yo, our schools need wood shop back. We don't want this just to be for white areas. Our schools need to have the same thing. Why? Because when you remove those, you're further taking skilled jobs, skilled practices away from young black people. So now, only thing they can do is go work at a McDonald's, at a Taco Bell, instead of saying, yo, I work at Taco Bell part time, but I'm going to school so I can major in biology, so I can help with the cancers or diabetes. I'm becoming a nutritionist because I feel like our people, though we like soul food, we can probably cook it better. We have these things that are there, but we're not compounding on that. We're not building off of that. And it literally starts from the education and these policies that are affecting us, displacing us. So these are the demands that you need to look at in California, all over the US, but in California, black people, SB 518 ain't nothing. You got people here, you got so many people waiting on a reparation check, dog. It's crazy. You waiting on a reparation check instead of looking at all these other policies that are affecting you and saying, yo, other than the reparations, that's just something you can do based on restorative justice on things that was taken away through y'all government moves. But also through your government moves, we still ain't getting the jobs we need. We're still seeing too many undocumented people blow up in industries, take over industries that are predominantly should have been for white and black Americans. We're seeing a lot of that shit. Like, what's good? So let's talk about a fix. Why I believe quarterly audits, like I will go monthly, but quarterly audits need to be enforced. We need government agencies or agencies that will go out here and enforce it in every industry, in every type of job, construction, whatever. We don't need nobody, people that looking to get paid under the table, that's looking to scheme and scam. You scheming and scamming. When I see black people involved in schemes and scams, I'm like, duh. If y'all would have just focused and did the right thing, you got to look at it 5, 10, 15, 20 years out and moving yourselves up. It could have been a whole change. But what you decided to do is allow someone to manipulate you and give you a little money here and there for you to make it. Your ancestors already went through that stupid ass crap. So why would you continue it and just scheme and scam with people when the laws are still red lighting you? The laws are still taking you away from those jobs. Why would you do that? For decades, California has had no consistent system to verify or publish who is actually being hired with public or private funds. Meaning, our governments, our city councils, and agencies, they're turning their head and acting as if they don't know what's happening. Yet we see California become predominantly a Latin American country, pretty much. State and local agencies collect payroll and tax data, yet there is no unified audit that distinguishes lawful employment from underground work. Meaning, that's a demand, a 518 agency that y'all need to have. We need to know what's the difference. Not just people claiming they pay taxes. How are you paying taxes and you don't even have a legal work permit? How is that even possible? Why would you just give the IRS money? At most, you can start a business here and get you an I-10, but if you're legalized, you would have a green card or a social security number so you can work. You would have legal authorization to work. You can't just go get money and start you up a food cart. That should be illegal. The absence of oversight allowed entire industries, construction, agriculture, hospitality, and even fast food chains to rely on unverified labor markets that pay below standard wages and sidestep worker protections. You have some fast food places that are, I would say it's like a franchise, for example. Let's just say McDonald's, for example. They allow people to own McDonald's as a franchise. That's a business they run or whatever. Then in certain areas, you start to see more of these immigrant faces at these places, grown ass people. Not no teenager who needs to learn how to work, have some work ethic, right? Grown ass people at these places. And I remember when this whole issue of paying higher wages for fast food workers to like $15 an hour and shit, it's because, yeah, some of us may say it's not worth paying them $15 an hour, but are we looking at the rent crisis, the homelessness crisis? What are we looking at everything else that's contributing to this person making a minimum wage of, let's say, $7 or $10, for example, and they're only making enough to pay rent and sometimes maybe short on rent, because they may got a car or they may have to get a bus pass. Like other stuff happens, a healthcare crisis may happen. Will they have the money for it? So these are the things that should be taken care of first before saying we're going to invite all these people into the country. Like that was going to put a band-aid over shit and resolve it. So then they start asking for $15 an hour, even though at that time I was already into AI. This is before AI blew up, like where it is today. But some of these fast food places that have the AI speaking now, when they're taking your orders through the drive-through, already something that me and other Black Americans were already innovative on, thinking about, right? We just never implemented or went out. Why? Because funding or not enough loans or community support, and we're talking about we are actually innovators in our country, American innovators. We're still here. Our children. We are the children of those people who invented so many things that the world uses today. They just don't want to claim it. They want to put it on someone else. I don't care about those people being ignorant of the stuff that went on because you see that ingenuity today. We have it. I have it. Right. So it's crazy to see somebody not even from here even turn their nose up at me, and it's like I will code you out of your job. I'm already trying to code somebody else out of their job. I will do it. That's just literally how I think because I'm an American, right? But we started to see that. And then, here's 2025, 2024. You're starting to see that. Now you got some McDonald's want to use robotics and stuff like things some of us Black Americans were already on. But again, when you're a part of a certain class that is educated and want to think in a different way, you got a lower class that hates on that, and I guess so defeated that they're like, "Nah, we belong down here," which is crazy. But let somebody else prop you up in media or whatever. Then it's all Black excellence and blah blah blah. Like some of it delusional. Okay, so you got people here that ain't worked hard, that ain't been here for years yet, or could have been hiding in the country because we're finding that out too. People have been hiding because they've been told to leave and they're hiding, but making careers, starting businesses, and able to move around, and they should have been gone. This is why, also a part of that SB 518 bill, it should be a demand that the governor rescind sanctuary state ordinance or law and ensure that they're going to participate and work with ICE. Like that's just what it's going to be. No way around it. We don't care. We're not empathizing with them. We're not sympathizing with them. This is what it needs to be because we are going to continue to see it as an attack on American communities, American citizens, until you rescind it and say, you know what, I fucked up. That's not what we should have done. We should have just had the people who weren't from here who just came across them, we should have told them you need to go back and you need to come through the right way because there's people here who did the right thing, who waited. And you're even slapping them in the face. You're even telling them, all that work, I know you want to be American, you became legalized, and we know we had you pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to take some basic tests and you waited your turn and you got here, but we're gonna allow other people to come and get around it. Like that's a slap in the face to the whole system. The whole system. But you have people wanting to ask for higher minimum wages. Like, are you even authorized to even be working in this particular job? First thing, have you been verified? Because Americans have been asking for the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to go up, but even locally, your state laws and all that, that also is why your minimum wage can go up. So, like in California, different cities here, their minimum wage is higher than the states because your local um, law. That's why local power is important. Black women, they get those funds, or the industry, meaning businesses are coming there. That's why it's important for your business to be established. It's important for your business to get the funding so that you can grow in your community, so that more funding comes there, right? And you can raise the wages without them forcing you to do it. Like saying everybody got to pay $20 an hour. You're talking about mom and pop businesses. Like that's why I'm like, what is this administration doing? The government doing? What are they doing? And are they enforcing that? Some companies can and some can't. Some people only run it with two, three people. Like, what are they doing? What are you talking about? So that further puts your business back economically, black women. Now, I'm going to read this again. The absence of oversight allowed entire industries, construction, agriculture, hospitality, and even fast food chains, to rely on unverified labor markets that pay below standard wages and sidestep worker protections. As costs rose and automation advanced, entry level jobs, once filled by teenagers and new graduates, dwindled. This is why you have young people out here wilding out. It used to be where parents are telling you you're gonna get a job or something, or you're gonna go to summer school, you're gonna do something, or you already had a family business, but you got to do something because you got to show you can work. You got gangs rising, young men going into gangs and stuff when they could be out here working, getting a job, learning how to work that job, learning the different facets of that job. So if they do want to do something else or go into entrepreneurship themselves, they know how it's ran instead of just, oh, I'm going to hustle or throw up any job and now you look like you scheming and scamming. It looks like we don't have any type of customer service or anything like that. We don't have that. The result was a gradual displacement of local youth and working class residents from the first rungs of the employment ladder. Quarterly labor audits would bring transparency back into the system. Every employer receiving state licenses, contracts, or tax incentives should report verified work authorization data and local hiring ratios. Audits would expose wage theft, protect lawful workers from exploitation, and show whether communities are truly benefiting from the jobs created in their own neighborhoods. This isn't about targeting groups, it's about enforcing one standard for everyone. A fair labor market depends on consistent oversight, not selective enforcement, and California has the technology and workforce agencies to make that oversight real. Again, when it's talking about enforcing the standard for one for everyone, SB 15 agency, if I was y'all, I would straight up bring up lawsuits about for all the funds and everything that the state funds that went to people that ain't even from here. I think these should be class action lawsuits, discrimination lawsuits. I think every American in every city should look into their local government and see where this money is rolling to and start to bring up lawsuits, especially um, for what happened during Biden's era. We need to bring in lawsuits. because it's straight up discrimination if you really look about it, if you really think about it, if they want to bring that up. If people saying, oh, well, they're doing stuff for black people, well, America has been doing stuff for black people, right? For urban people, for minorities or women owned businesses. We've been doing that stuff. It ain't new. The issue is they're not even getting that funding. If you actually cared, you would see, man, they're not even getting that funding. Maybe that's why certain communities are dealing with stuff because the government there, the local government, isn't even helping them out. Until California adopts mandatory audits, corruption will remain the state's most stable industry. That should be a demand. We need coordinate. That's. I just gave an opportunity for more jobs to be created. More jobs. California has expanded a number of state programs that touch immigration or labor. For example, state budget documents show that the full scope of Medi-Cal expansion for undocumented adults now cost about $8 to $9 billion per year. Immigration legal aid and refugee assistance grants total tens of millions annually. They got grants and street vendor formalization programs distribute micro grants of $500 to $5,000 per business. A lot of black women love to cook. What's good? Did y'all get any of that grant money? Did y'all even know about that? These initiatives are legal, state funded choices, not for federal mandates, and they operate without a single integrated quarterly report tying dollars spent to outcomes such as verified employment, wage levels, or local hiring shares. That absence of oversight leaves legislators and residents guessing how those funds affect the broader labor market. Quarterly audits would close that information gap. Each state department that funds workforce, healthcare, or business programs could publish a transparent summary showing how many people were served, what types of businesses benefited, and how local hiring changed by zip code. Aggregated compliance data, not immigration status, would reveal whether programs are strengthening or fragmenting local employment. The goal is even handed enforcement. Every employer who benefits from state support should meet the same verification and wage standards, and every dollar of public funding should be traceable from allocation to result. Oversight is not punishment. It's how Californians of every background can see that their tax money is being used lawfully and fairly. So, again, these are just ways that California said, screw Americans, and we're going to focus, along with the administrations that were Democratic, we're going to focus on immigrants, newcomers, first, second, third generation people. Now, the financial crash of 2008 wasn't just a recession for Black Californians, it was erasure. Now, we know Obama bailed out the banks. And again, these same banking institutions are the same ones that didn't give out loans or was predatory or made up extra rules for people who were African Americans. They made up stuff, and our government decided to bail them out instead of bailing out the black homeowners. They didn't do no real checks or balances or any checks or audits after that. After bailing them out, I don't know what took place for them not to continue to say, we're going to continue to check everything, every person, every American or every homeowner who got a loan, a home loan or mortgage through you. We want you to track their recovery. We want you to pay them back. But no, they said, we just going to give you a slap on the hand and y'all just going to have to pay the federal government a fine instead of saying, because they try to make it seem like no, they don't know who did it, even though they should have went after the executives, because usually stuff comes from the top down. So because they didn't do that, it continued to fail Black Americans who actually own homes, who are actually homeowners, and we're continuing to grow as homeowners. And now it was erased, and now you have people coming from all over the world becoming homeowners and taking over those homes in those communities since 2008. Now, this was the federal government who had to bail them out. But if we're talking specifically about California and banks, every state in California needs to have audits on these banks and specifically look into mortgage lending, have audits there if they don't already have them, and be very strict about it. They need to see that data. They should see that Americans are benefiting. They need to see all that stuff. They need to understand the accounts. Why are people, don't have money in their accounts, or why is their loan so high compared to this person? They have the same type of credit history. These things are easy if you put money into these agencies that can audit. These things are easy to track. It's not hard, and we have the technology. California is the number one state with any technology advancements coming out of it, from AI to whatever else that we brought out of here. Out of here, you know what I'm saying? And again, I'm born and raised from here, so my mindset is a tech mindset. So I'm an innovator. You know what I'm saying? I built things that can literally be implemented across the board, even in the government, all that stuff, right? So you already have this talent here, this skill already here, but they decide to not even invest in that skill or that talent. Okay, you got predatory lenders targeted our neighborhoods with subprime loans that they knew would fail, and when the collapse came, banks were rescued, but our families were not. My parents were pretty young and they were owning multiple houses, but I think a little bit before the crash happened. But I know it got tough a little bit, so they have to try to make up for those loans. And then you have us as millennials who went to college, who got jobs, who try to do the right thing, still not getting homes because the pricing is crazy. It's crazy, right? So you still have an issue. You have some programs where they want to help people get loans, but again, if that's not going specifically to Americans, legal citizens, and it's open for anybody, because you're trying to create a loophole for people and you're not checking on that stuff to make sure that homes in certain cities or areas are taking care of those people, then there's an issue. There's an issue. In Los Angeles, Oakland, and Stockton, thousands of black homeowners lost everything, while federal and state relief bypassed them in favor of corporate bailouts and affluent zip codes. So even then, when people try to say there's no racism, yeah, it may not be Tom Thornton calling somebody a nigger to their face, but it may be his local government getting more funding and helping their communities to build that extra room, while a black family have to build up their own extra rooms by putting in their own money, doing the same thing, but they would never see that. It hurts their feelings to know they're skilled black people. It hurts people's feelings. That's why I can never feel less than a lot of these people. Like, you're hurt. What else could it be other than that? It's not like I'm out here. I don't steal. I don't scheme. I don't do none of that because I have the skill to do whatever I want, live however I want. So I don't need to do those things. It's not in me because I just know I can make millions on the track to make millions by the things I do and know. Because that's all it takes. I just need people to understand that if I can't break through like other people who are like me, if we can't break through, it's because we got political agendas and we got laws and policies that are affecting the progress, especially in our areas. 15 years later, no restitution has come. No state funded program rebuilt what was stolen. So even if the SB 518 agency want to go back to the black farmers in the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, they got to look at even this era of the economic crisis that failed a lot of homeowners and black homeowners specifically. Meanwhile, those same homes are resold at triple the price to outsiders who profit off of generational pain. A true equity agenda would include a Home Recovery Act, something that Newsom could do. He can do that. He can make this focus on Americans who lost a lot during that 2008 crisis. He can say what we're not going to allow any financial or banking institution to do. If you are doing business in California, we want to see those numbers. We want to make sure that you're not leaving people out. We want to make sure that you're not creating loopholes, because we're not creating loopholes, and people can recover. We can get those communities back to where they need. We can see a plethora of Black wealth, business. We can see a lot of that. But that Home Recovery Act is very important for displaced Black Californians, offering down payment grants, meaning to Black Californians, credit repair services that are free, funded by the state, and ownership restoration funded by the state. You funded people that ain't from here. There's no way they can fund you. And an economic advancement, it's time to focus on y'all. You cannot preach diversity from land built on disposition. In 1908, Colonel Allen Allensworth and other freedmen built a self-governed town in Tulare County, a place where Black Californians owned land, schools, and dignity. It thrived until it thrived until state neglect dried its water supply and strangled its economy. We have areas here in California where the water went bad, and those areas had Black people in them. So when we talk about environmental protections, these are the reasons we need more than just restorative justice from the past. We need to make sure moving forward, these changes happen with us in mind always. Allensworth was proof that independence worked, and perhaps that's why it was allowed to fail. Its story reveals how success by Black hands often meets sabotage from the very institutions sworn to ensure fairness. A century later, Allensworth's lessons still stands. When we build without permission, the state responds with obstruction. Whether through zoning codes, redevelopment seizures, or selective funding, California repeats the same suppression under new language. So it's the same thing. Allensworth should have been a blueprint for prosperity. Instead, it became a warning label for ambition. Reviving that spirit today means refusing to ask permission to prosper. Let's talk about agriculture after the flood now. So this is after the flood influx of immigrants came into the country. Before the mid 20th century, Black farmers in the Central Valley and Imperial Valley owned orchards, vineyards, and cotton fields that fed the state. Then came the federal Bracero program, importing millions of low wage workers, slavery again, and displacing Black labor overnight because we don't want you niggas to progress. We're going to try to continue to displace you economically. We're going to talk about how lazy you are because you just want better labor laws for yourself. And we're going to bring in people that we're going to tell them they're working hard, but they're actually slaves still, because that's what we really progress on. USDA loan denials and water rights theft finished the job, forcing families off their land. Today, fewer than 500 Black farmers remain in a state of 70,000 farmers, or 70,000 farms, living proof that policy, not incompetence, erased us from the soil. So this is why I don't take any immigrant person that I know ain't even from here serious when they say this is their land, when they want to be prideful off of work in the fields. It's because of what I know. Had they not did this to us and you came here, I would feel different. But I can't, knowing that the government gave you a hand, brought you in as the same slaves that they try to push out now, and gave you an opportunity by through policy, through changes in environments to displace Black people who were already here building California since Spain colonized it. Meanwhile, the governor praises California's agricultural miracle while ignoring the lineage it buried. 90% of crop labor is now foreign born, yet only a fraction of state agricultural grants reach black farmers. Meaning, if you're a black farmer, either you're renting out your property or whatever, but foreign born, meaning not only do they let the migration, the seasonal migrants come in, now they say, well, we're going to feed you, house you, we're going to give you all this extra stuff. You can just stay now. So we can continue to suppress the black farmers. The black farmers who also was growing the same foods that you can see in the stores today. Could have grown their own avocados, corn, all that stuff that you see today. Meaning that's why some Americans now, again, are voting Republican, and that's why they don't care about certain immigrants saying, "Oh, well, you guys are going to be suffering." Americans don't care because we were well off even before you came. It was just laws and policies affected some of us, all of us really, but affected some of us where they allowed you to come in. They became lenient. So it's not that we as Americans can't progress. Not only that, we have technology. Some of these fields and stuff are going to use machines that are going to be out of this world. And I'm telling you, someone who's I don't hate China at all. I love their innovation. I love it. Japan, I love what they got going on. But a lot of stuff that they got going on is going to reach the shores of America, and that's what's going to be used other than just labor. So when they're talking about, oh, we don't have workers on the farms and blah blah blah, it's time for that farmer to invest in technology just like they did the cotton gin, because it's a different industrial revolution. So it's time to invest in better technology. Labor has to change, right? Reparation in practice means land access, water rights, and training for descendants who once cultivated this ground. Until California restores those rights, every supermarket shelf is stocked with the fruits of stolen opportunity. And that's just what it is. People are feeling good that their opportunities was stolen and told them to feel good that you're not lazy and all this other stuff. Manipulated these people to feel this way about being mistreated, about taking opportunities through policy changes by a government, state or federal, because racist people at the time could not deal with the fact that other Americans who happen to be black were doing well without them. So even those communities, if they say they're not like that anymore, they would stand with you. They would be allies to you and back you up and say, you goddamn right. We're tired of the crime. We're tired of all this stuff. So in order to, do that, we need to make sure these people are getting what they're supposed to get, their opportunities. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see states like California support people waning from here and just allocate funds for them. Tariffs were never meant to punish California, they were meant to rebuild it. Every tariff is a chance to bring back domestic manufacturing, to reopen factories, retrain workers, and give the next generation real careers instead of gig work, because that has been the thing, gig work instead of training or sending young people into these fields that they can work. But guess what they fill with? All grown ass people who ain't even supposed to be working, because that's who's getting caught. They're not even supposed to be working. And I think California has yet to get the full force of ICE and immigration agencies that are coming to move people out, that know they ain't supposed to be here working, accepted a lie, and now want to be prideful about that lie. Yet Governor Newsom opposes tariffs because they challenge his corporate donors and global supply networks. He would rather import everything from overseas than invest in the Californians standing idle right here. Homelessness can be cleaned up if he would focus on what is working. He's not ignorant to this either. He's just playing ignorant. He's playing ignorant. And his playing with ignorance is playing with your lives, black women. It's a betrayal wrapped in technocratic language. Global competitiveness means exporting opportunity and importing poverty. I remember when I was like, people, companies and stuff are going to Africa. I remember China was, going into Africa. And I was like, those governors or presidents in Africa, they need to make sure that at least 51% of the labor is coming from people in that area. Meaning, thank you for helping us to build roads and bringing machinery, and we got trades and stuff going on. But 51% of the people here need to be hired. It could be higher than that. I'm just saying at least 51% of the locals need to be in those jobs. Meaning, you're going to train them. You're going to help build the schools, support education. Meaning, you're going to help to build schools, get whatever education we need, training for those young adults to get into those fields. And we're going to use, if you want, your business to boom here, you got to hire. And there's some states or countries that do that. You have to pay a fee or hire someone or work with someone locally. So it's not just, you know, um, certain countries like Africa need to do it, but you got some countries already practicing that. So when you look at America and you've seen Americans not benefiting off of that, but our federal government is, and then they use that money to continue to fund other people, then it's a problem. It's a problem. You're bringing global competitiveness here instead of allowing Americans to compete with the globe. It's crazy. If California embraced federal tariffs strategically, we could restore steel, text. Um, I'm sorry, I lost my. I said steel. Hold on, I'm sorry, guys. Let me get back to where I was in my back document. Okay. If California embraced federal tariffs strategically, we could restore steel, textile, and equipment production in our own cities. These are the same industries that once gave Black Californians stability and union wages. Tariffs, paired with state backed training programs, could anchor a new middle class. But instead of seeing tariffs as a tool as tools of empowerment, the governor treats them as threats to profit. He forgets that the purpose of government is not to serve the market, it's to serve the people who built it. So again, here's more jobs that can be available, but he chooses to make an issue out of it. He chooses to help manipulate the public to believe that everything that the current administration is doing is bad. It's not good. When you look at it, it's benefiting Americans. It's the focus is to benefit Americans. So if our government can't see this, but he wants to focus on immigrants and communities that have immigrants, then we have a problem. And he only says, "Hey, I'll sign SB 518 for y'all though." Like that's it. Like if y'all agency ain't looking at all this stuff, then it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. Now let's look at training and tuition, the promise that was unkept. California's universities once promised access to all, but that promise has become selective. Black Californians pay taxes into a system that now offers in state tuition and scholarships to undocumented students, while our own children drown in debt. We are told to celebrate inclusivity while watching opportunities slip further away. If the state truly believed in reparative justice, descendants of enslaved and displaced Californians would receive tuition free education as repayment for centuries of unpaid labor and systemic exclusion. So, based on what we've already found from the inception of California through the Spanish colony up until today, These are things that the governor of California can do other than just say, hey, I'm signing a bill, SB 518, and that's it. Education is not a gift. It's a right earned through the blood and tax dollars of those who came before us. Every Black Californian family that helped fund this system deserves first access to its benefits, plain and simple. Instead, the gates of education have become toll booths. We can rebuild fairness by rewriting the formula. No more token scholarships, but full tuition remission tied to lineage and residency. That is how you turn apology into policy. Now, here's the remaining and erasure of black schools that is happening here in California. I know it's in other states, but again, this is about California. Our history is being rewritten not by textbooks alone, but the removal of our names from the walls of our schools. Institutions once named after Carter G. Woodson, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. There's way more. There's so many more Black African Americans that schools were named after. Okay, so these are just main people that I pulled out, but they're quietly renamed to reflect community diversity. Again, if they're oppressing you, letting crime be rampant, homelessness, and then they say, well, we want to clean it up by bringing in a whole new people. And to do that, we want to reflect who's there now. They're going to change the names. For what? For what? Are these high performing schools? Hell no, they're not. So you did all that to do what? To still make it a Spanish name from the colonizers of Spain? Because you would have to say what Native American can we rename this school to? Because some of them don't even know, they don't even celebrate with, they're not even intertwined with any of the Native American Indians that were here. So you should expect those schools to be named after them, but they're not. They're being named after Spanish European people. This is why it's a joke to me. It's a joke. Erasing the legacy that inspired generations of Black children. When you take away a name, you take away identity, pride, and belonging. Renaming schools may seem cosmetic, but it's the cosmetic surgery of culture, reshaping the face of education until we no longer recognize ourselves. Governor Newsom could literally put a stop to what's going on and say you cannot rename schools that are African American names. But you know what happened when they started to change schools that were from and I know this happened back in the day though, from Confederate names, because again, those people were for America at the end of the day. You still got some wanting to float around their Confederate flags. I don't see that flag as anything American. It's either the American flag or not. That's how I see it because I'm a true American. So it makes sense to say, well, these people weren't for America, so we remove their name. And it has to be the same for newcomers. Like, it's plain and simple. Black students already battle underfunded classrooms and declining literacy rates. Stripping away historical anchors deepens that wound. California must protect heritage the way it protects habitat through law, funding, and intentional preservation. Teaching inclusion doesn't require erasing history. It requires honoring everyone's truth. If this state can preserve missions built by colonizers, it can preserve schools named for liberators. So, again, millennial women, are we going to face what we're seeing as far as the erasure of ourselves? Because some of these schools are even named after Black women. Are we going to allow that to continue to happen? Are we just going to let SB 518 be enough? Population decline and the cost of leaving. Over the past 3 decades, more than half a million Black Californians have left this state. They didn't leave because they stopped loving California. They left because California stopped loving them back. The cost of living soared, which is affecting a lot of people here. Wages stagnated and crime rose. We know that's happening. Like everything that's happening, it all is in a circular manner. It all makes sense, right? Again, I don't excuse any criminals or anything. I don't care if you're a white collar, blue collar criminal. I do not excuse it. But what I am saying, all this matters when it comes to the erasure of Black American people. Meanwhile, leadership bragged about population growth driven by immigration. Like, why do we care about that when you ain't even focused on the people that's here? As if replacement were the same as representation. The Black Exodus is not an accident, it's evidence of policy displacement. Every moving truck that leaves South LA or East Oakland is a data point in a moral failure. Governor Newsom don't want to understand and recognize that he is failing people. Even when the Republicans or Republican-minded people, conservative people, were leaving and saying they're leaving, some of them came back, some of them left. It wasn't really a big hit. We got a lot of people here in California. So that's just like a small smidgen of a fraction of people that actually left here, right? Not even a million, okay? But he wasn't realizing the failure of his actions, of his policies, of the laws. They write a lot of these governors. They'll enact laws or get laws, and there's other laws that overlap, laws that need to go away. That's why you have a lot of confusion. They need to be like they need, and this is where technology can come in. Having some type of AI, maybe law based, say, yo, this new law will overlap with this law, so this has to go, or that has to be replaced with this. And you need to shut down this old policy or law so that this new one can be enacted. Or if you're going to amend this one, do this. Because I don't think there's people that are doing that. Or you got, again, people who they didn't let rise up with paying their tuition and stuff benefit off of this shit. Our departure signals a state where lineage loyalty means nothing. Californians should not have to leave the state they built to find affordable safety and dignity. Period. Reversing this trend means immediate investment in housing, entrepreneurship, and community restoration targeted at the descendants who were driven out. Bring us home, not through slogans, but through structure. He can really do this today. He can do this. Justice without boundaries. So, crime, fear, and the price of leniency. So, being lenient on newcomers and not taking care of the crime that's already here and letting those newcomers benefit off the new laws like cash bail laws. And you can't even find these people. You ain't got no documentation of who they are, where they're at. That's why you need to, work with ICE because they would know. They would come find them. That's their jobs. Justice without boundaries becomes injustice in disguise. The end of cash bail and the rise of non prosecution policies have created open doors for repeat offenders and closed doors for public safety. So everybody started to deal with these stupid lawlessness laws that they put into place because they started to have more sympathy for people who would commit the crimes more than the victims. Even when you look at the media really doesn't want to focus on the victims. They always focus on the criminal. And when you're looking at that, people, you got to say, why do they only want to put the face to look like a specific person? So even when there's some people who are just like, oh, well, they're gonna do it because they're black, they're never gonna, bring them up. But it's like, no, you're not paying attention. Yes, they are. They want to do that. They want to remove black people by showing their faces or making them the face of crime. But they also want to use the emotions of black people by showing the, I guess, racist or hate crimes that are against them as well to get black people riled up. So you got to understand this from a perspective of it's not about you. It's about what is this administration doing to erase people that are also against it, but affect everybody. because this no cash bail had been the most stupidest thing to be enacted. I mean, and they're not even doing nothing. They don't even enforce anything. So this is why, again, Republicans won, because the Democrats have never truly, in my since I've been alive, haven't shown that they care about the justice of victims. So why would they even give a fuck about SB 518? Why would they even care if no cash bail is still a thing? Families in black neighborhoods live under siege, not from just criminals, but from a government that refuses to enforce its own laws. Crime is not compassion's by product. It's neglected, it's neglect's reward. When leadership mistakes leniency for love, communities bleed. This is why your belief system, your spiritual or religious beliefs should not be involved in your daily reality of what's happening. Like, because of that, this fucking fool Newsom said he didn't even want to do continue with death penalty. He's going to find another way to have people do some type of uh, like, I wouldn't say it was remittance. Maybe I'm missing the word here, but pretty much, have those people on death row pay back something through pretty much working through the systems. Pay these people through the systems, and they ain't barely even making any money in these fucking prison jobs. Like, come on. No, leave them on the death penalty. Period. You didn't care about them when they killed that little girl or the little boys or other grown people or working people. You didn't care about none of that. Somebody's grandma gone. You didn't care about none of that. You letting gangs continue to terrorize communities regardless of what community they're in. You don't give a shit about none of that. So either you rescind this cash bail here in California, and you enforce the law. You need to ensure law enforcement are being checked, meaning there's no gangs, there's no groups of people just entering in, and you're not checking on why the hiring practices amongst them. It's still important to stay on top of police brutality, but don't use police brutality as a means to say, well, I'm going to let this fucking criminal out. Someone who robs and breaks into cars is just, I'm not saying they're a criminal who's going to be violent, but them continuing to do that is a slap in the face. People will bend the law because without your religious beliefs or any of that shit or thinking or trying to lead with love, people will use that to still commit crimes. Like, it's crazy. A functioning society cannot survive without law is optional. We need reform that prioritizes protection over politics, that treats safety as a civil right, not a privilege. Black Californians deserve neighborhoods where children can play without ducking bullets and store owners can prosper without fear. American store owners at that. Accountability is not the enemy of equity, it is the foundation. Restore enforcement, restore order, and you restore peace. So Newsom can fix this for California. He really can. Now let's talk about the immigrant funding versus black recovery for California. Okay. Now, during COVID-19 pandemic, California proved exactly where its loyalties lie. Over $3 billion were earmarked for immigrant relief. 3 billion people, from stimulus checks to rental assistance, while fewer than 100 million reached black owned businesses. These numbers are not conspiracy, they're documented in the state's own budget reports. Now, if you got people in government who come from families that are immigrants, first, second, or third generation, of course, they would continue to fix these laws and fix the funding that it doesn't benefit them. This is also why Americans are mad. You got Americans even saying we don't even want y'all in our governments because you couldn't even show. And I knew this a long time ago. I'm like, man, they're gonna fuck up and they're gonna mess up their opportunities. Because if Americans get pissed off that you're not thinking like an American, you're still thinking of bringing people here, you got a problem. And they can only get away with it here in California because our government does not enforce anything. Our government wants to be we are the world, and that's why you have to go. That's why you have to go. Now, the governor proudly expanded Medi-Cal. I mean, he was so proud to speak about that. Legal defense funds and housing subsidies for non-citizens while watching entire black business districts collapse. But he wants to sign SB 518 and smile and mean more with the President of the United States. When the smoke cleared, the programs labeled equity had bypassed the very people whose ancestors built the tax base funding them. So when you see the federal government saying, "I'm not sending you any grant money, any federal grant money," like at first I was like, "Man, California contributes a lot to the pot, and we can survive on our own." But when you look at surviving on our own, you look at, man, well, this money ain't gonna take care of Americans. But the governor, the federal government is saying, I'm not sending you money because it seems like what y'all using the money for is pretty obvious. Whatever y'all using this money for isn't supporting American communities. Your homelessness is out of control. You still haven't fixed that. You keep trying to. I think this one old black mayor from San Francisco was like, they want to appear as if they're humanizing people. And it's like, dude, these people are shitting, pissing, doing drugs all on the streets. What fucking dignity is that? Why do kids have to walk past that shit? Why are they even have RVs around any elementary school or junior high or high school? Like, what kind of thinking do these people have? This is why I don't want people's religion intertwined with reality. And when we're talking about policies and laws for everyone, right? Because that thought process, them, what they believe about Jesus or whoever they want to believe about, still doesn't line up with their Bible. Like I said, their God would have been fucking turned people into dust. He would have been burnt down some shit. That's the same God that's going to show up in their revelations, that shows up in their revelations of their Bible and just brings all kind of terror. And they're waiting for this rapture and all this shit. And it's like, did you guys actually read about the rapture? And why do a lot of you believe you're about to automatically go to heaven? Why do y'all not believe that y'all about to be terrorized on this earth by y'all's God? Christ came to serve a mission specifically per your Bible. He came to serve us a mission, but he did let people know, if I wanted to, we can go to war right now. I can call upon some angels to come down if I wanted to, but he is on a mission. But you got people who don't understand that. That's why I don't like people just praying for me out of nowhere, because I don't know what you actually believe in, right? I don't know if your reading comprehension matches what you believe. Recovery without repair is theft in a new form. The same politicians who say Black Lives Matter during elections erase those lives from the budget spreadsheet. If a government can't spend billions supporting those who crossed its border, it can spend billions restoring those who built its borders. California's true measure of justice is not in its speeches, but in its spreadsheets. And those spreadsheets tell the truth. Newcomers are prioritized for facts, and Black Californians are penalized. And again, this is only about California, but it is definitely happening in other cities across America. And for other Republicans or conservatives to try to send warnings, again, they failed at articulating better, but sending warning about this for years, even before Obama, okay? But sending warning about what was coming for years. And this is why they've been trying to get back, because they are focused on the country and the people who's here. In the world's fifth largest economy, black mothers are dying at rates that rival developing nations. So just pause there. When we're talking about even abortion, and you have counterparts who are just being emotionally manipulative and want to tell black women about them having abortions and this and that, how many of them looked into the mortality rates just by having a fucking child? Because the healthcare system is not prioritizing Americans and our health issues. And this also happens because of stress. They're stressing in your communities and your environment because of the terrorizing that's going around, the domestic violence, the economics that's around there, not getting loans, have to work their businesses over and over, have to work them themselves, can't ever scale up. So if abortions are happening, I can guarantee this is related to why some of those are happening for black women specifically. The maternal mortality rate for black women in California is 4 times higher than for white women. And the state's response has been silent. So, what is SB 518 going to do when it's regard to this? What special programs is he going to take Medi-Cal money and say, I'm going to put that to funding black women who are dealing with this? See why it's a slap in the face? See why? And you've been working, you've been trying to build business, you've been trying to dig yourself up out of this mess that policies and discrimination have continued to put you in and place you around. You can't say one side is racist when these motherfuckers don't even care either. Clinics in Compton, Stockton, and East Oakland have closed because it was at a point I was like, man, where are all these new Hispanic clinics coming out of nowhere? They weren't here like that. That's what I'm saying. If you from here, you would have married, like, you know your country. And there were black clinics, black doctors. I remember growing up in my family's janitorial service. There was a black doctor that we used to clean his office from. He was older, so he's probably either passed away now, but he had to shut down his practice because no other black person has been pushed to go behind him and continue his practice. Continue that. And now that area is predominantly filled with first, second, and third generation immigrants from all over the fucking world in Latin America. Like, we're telling you what's going on. So this is not equity, it's erasure through policy neglect. Again, we're going back to what's actually taking place versus being emotionally manipulated through the media. Every government has a moral triage. It decides who to save first. California has chosen to subsidize the healthy while abandoning the dying. Black healthcare equity begins with prioritizing life. If they say they are pro-life, then why are they not prioritizing black women, especially with Medi-Cal in California? When's the last time that this governor or even previous governors even done that? So this is why it made no sense for him to even bring up out of his mouth he was about to support undocumented immigrants with Medi-Cal. And you have a crisis right here with Americans, American women. Like, he's out of his mind. The state must fund maternity programs, mental health access, and preventative care specifically for Black Californians who have borne the weight of this system the longest. I gave you the facts from the beginning. Who built this motherfucker, who continue to build on this motherfucker, and who has been trying to disrupt that building on this motherfucker. So if you don't see black neighborhoods or black communities thriving, you have to look at why they're unable to thrive at times. It's not because of everybody in there who's just acting degenerate. You have literal policies that are still in place. Or today, you have a whole government who has brought in mostly undocumented people here. and said, we're going to keep you safe here and not help out ICE to get people out or make people come in the right way. Black people knew this, but some of us fail to articulate it because we like to allow counterparts who don't read, counterparts who can't bring facts or articulate their facts, campaign against you because they're upset, but they could have done the same thing I'm doing, especially now that AI is here. You can start doing this stuff. A society that won't protect the women who bring life into it is a society preparing for extinction. Meaning, if you're going to get on black women about abortion, you need to understand what is happening to manipulate that issue. Why are you hounding baby mamas or single mothers and this shit is happening? Funds went to undocumented people for Medi-Cal, and you're cracking on black women? Like, come on. Crazy. Repair isn't a dream, it's arithmetic. The numbers prove that California can afford to restore what it stole. We're the fifth largest economy in the world, the entire world. Okay? So we have the money. We have the money. Imagine a budget that allocates even 10% of equity funds to lineage based repair, grants for displaced homeowners, land buying assistance for descendants of freedmen, and business capital for long ignored neighborhoods. That's not a handout, it's restitution, meaning our governor shouldn't give a damn about any other community, especially if you're an immigrant and you've come from immigrants. He shouldn't care about what you got to say because he's helping Americans become legalized. He shouldn't care. He also shouldn't care because he's got to say, yo, we helped y'all. We helped y'all get to where y'all at. So you didn't do it the way black Americans did. We literally have laws that prevent you being upset or being prejudiced really don't mean anything. You can take yourself back across the border if you want, so you can be mad over there. Because I don't really care about them being mad about it. Like, yeah, that money that you're getting, the funds, you should work to supply it back because it was given to you. Policy was created to help you out. And that those funds should have went to us. It would have been a difference if none of these policies were in place, none of this stuff affected us, and we were prospering, but we dropped the ball, right? It's a difference when you drop the ball on your own, but it's different when you're actually working towards it and they continue to have war against you politically, policy wise, law wise. You're just getting war hit upon you over and over again. So I don't care about people. Yeah, you got the money. Pay your taxes so we can benefit just like you did because we paid our taxes. We allowed you up in this motherfucker. You're operating illegally in this motherfucker. So shut your mouth or go back to your country. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Quarterly audits can enforce fair hiring, while the Black Land and Home Recovery Fund can finally convert speeches into signatures and signatures into ownership. Justice doesn't happen in the streets, it happens in the budget. We don't need another commission to study oppression. That's what I feel this SB 518 is. Like, I don't need you to study what the hell happened. It's out here, it's on the books, it's documented, simple as that. We can focus on current laws to get them removed, things rescinded, and make sure the focus is on Americans and restoring Black American communities here in California. We need legislation that corrects it. California should lead the nation by defining equity as measurable outcomes for its Black citizens, not symbolic gestures. The blueprint is here. All that's missing is political courage to build with it. That's really it. So here's a new California contract. Every contract defines who owes what to whom. The current one is broken. California's social contract used to mean that if you worked, paid taxes, and followed the law, the state would protect and uplift you. Now, it protects everyone but you. The new California contract restores that balance. A promise that every dollar, every benefit, every policy must first serve the citizens who've invested the most into this land. This is not anti immigrant, it is pro accountability. It is about enforcing the order of duty that every government is bound to uphold. Citizens first, guest second. The new California contract demands audits, transparency, and lineage based inclusion in every department, from education to agriculture. It insists that California stop outsourcing its compassion and start practicing its justice. When government forgets who it serves, it's time for the people to remind it. And that's what's happening. You may see, again, Black Americans registering as Republicans and Republicans continuing to win in areas that they've never won before, just like so called Democrats were, right? But you're going to start seeing that more and more because Americans in general are frustrated. They're fed up. They're fed up. They're so fed up, they're allowing people who said the most stupidest shit out their mouth be upheld. But when I look at it, I'm like, well, again, I don't agree what happened to George Floyd, but I don't see George Floyd as nothing but the crackhead down the street that I knew growing up. He don't want to do nothing with his life. Nobody came to fucking help this guy. And we allowed this guy to have a statue, to be a martyr for black people as if we all come from or act like this dude. It has to be the most embarrassing thing knowing that there's black people like myself who went to school, who never really truly did drugs like that, who never really fell back like that, because we are out here, and we speak strong like myself. Some black people don't like it because they think we all are the same or should be the same, but they ain't hardly never made me churn. But they do stuff like that. And then we promoted this guy and making him the and through each season of this whole Black Lives Matter era, it was certain black guys that we were just promoting. Black women had issues too, but we made it about black guys. And then we used people who were being defiant as well. And y'all be wanting defiant people to be getting justice because you have an issue of racism. You have an issue with somebody else touching them or having them to do the right thing. You have an issue with that authority over them, but you ain't even got authority over them yourself. You want to talk to them and let them continue to be all in the neighborhood. No, they need to go serve their time. They need to go make up for those consequences. You need to suffer the consequences for your actions. You don't get a pass because we need to know that you're coming out disciplined, that you're coming out with a new mind, that you're coming out and saying, you know what, I enjoy my freedom. I enjoy talking to people in the neighborhood. I enjoy protecting people in my neighborhood. I enjoy working. I enjoy contributing to my neighborhood. Regardless of how they try to attack us, I'm still going to stand tall. I'm still going to keep going. But that wasting time is what has affected you. Because again, reparations was coming out of the mouths of some people, some Democrats. Because again, if Democrats was running it, it was them who was trying to tell you no at every turn. Because why? They pivoted and focused on immigrants to come in. So you should have been sounded the alarm. It wasn't even about Kamala not becoming the president. She could have definitely became a president, but it was not about that. Some of you just weren't paying attention to the signs that were happening that Republicans were going to lose. I mean, we're going to win. It was the signs from years and years that I was like, man, the Democrats are about to lose. And I don't know how it didn't frustrate y'all about the shit that I'm telling you right now that you're seeing through this presentation. I don't know how you're not frustrated with the Democrats not serving you and you voted for them while they allowed other people to come in to erase you so they can become legalized. And they even want to legalize people who've been here and wasn't supposed to be here. A lot of these people are not coming through asylum, you know what I'm saying? And they want to legalize it just so they can vote. And you're not recognizing. That's why some of us get played. You get played. California's greatest was not imported, period. Americans of all backgrounds, we are it. We are number one. We influence the world. We are just that, period. It was grown, built, sung, and defended by us. From the ranches of the 1800s to the shipyards of World War II, from the jazz clubs of Oakland to the civil rights marches in Los Angeles, Black Californians have carried this state through every chapter. Yet our fingerprints have been wiped off its story. That ends now. We are not asking for recognition. We are demanding restoration. This movement is not about resentment. It's about redirection. The time has come to audit the money, enforce the law, and rebuild the promise. 6,000 signatures will replace this campaign where it belongs, in the hands of the people who built the dream and were locked out of its rewards. California belongs to its makers, and the makers are returning home. Audit, repair, restore. That is how we make history. And Black women, I will say, you need to pay attention to the governors that are running for 2026, and you need to ensure that they are going to focus on Americans. You need to ask if you're into any environment where they're at, and you can ask questions. You know, take this presentation and pull questions from it and ask them. Don't let them lead you with denials. Tell them, no, I have the facts here. This is the research. This is what it shows. Are you going to rescind the sanctuary state laws? We want those rescinded. Are you going to work with ICE? Are you going to put Medi-Cal funds towards Black women who are dealing with mortality rates? You know, these are the questions you need to ask versus just saying, oh, well, we're going to have some reparations bill to look at restorative justice. That's all across America for us, all across America. And yes, people can afford it. We paid our taxes so they can bring their families here. So they owe us, or they can go back to their country with their family. And that's literally what's taking place. If this birthright law gets changed, a lot more people are going to be leaving. Trust me, a lot more people will be gone, meaning they're making more space for Americans to take advantage. That's why Black women, you cannot be playing during this time. You have to see the playing field right now. You cannot be emotionally involved where you're not seeing the opportunities that are being opened up for Americans. White people ain't got to be the only ones taking advantage. Again, go find some allies. Go find some allies and work with them. Get you some white friends. Instead of saying white people ain't got Black friends, won't you go be friends with them? Go with some integrity. Go and learn. Go be amongst them to say, I'm just trying to work with you so we can build a better nation together. We don't need imported labor. We really don't. We've been good. We are good. Trust me. I know we're good. That's why I'm for the HB1 visa, um, adding $100,000 to that. And you got some of those people really thinking that because they're going to leave, you know, we're going to have a talent shortage, or you know, you guys aren't going to be innovative. Like, think of the boldness of someone like that. And they have people like myself and other Americans who are really skilled, really talented. We just need the training. We need the opportunities, the building space open, and it is easy like peasy. Easy. Budgets. are moral documents. They reveal truth louder than any press conference. California spends over $5 billion a year on immigrant relief programs. Let me repeat that again. California spends over $5 billion a year on immigrant relief programs, while less than 300 million reaches Black specific initiatives. You have to question this money. Why are we providing relief to people who should have came in the right way? What relief do they need? Did we ask about the relief of the people who legalize themselves? What did they get? They had to pay thousands of dollars to get a green card to be legalized. So are they talking about these people and they're providing them money back? Or is it talking about people who ain't even went through the right way? You got to question those things. No one can call that equity. Every department has diversity reports, yet none track results for the descendants of the very people who funded this state's foundation. That's not oversight, that's erasure by omission. So some of these people purposely write these data points and set this up. That's why, again, Black women, you're being scientists, statisticians, you're doing all of that, and you're not going into these fields or continue to go into these fields. Fuck people who got an issue with you being educated. The reason you're being educated is so you can get into these areas to make some goddamn changes. If they can't understand that, they need to go with the immigrants out of this country. Because as Americans, we're all changing. We're all in a different way. They need to go. When a state can map every carbon molecule but can't count how many Black families received a housing grant, and this, you know what I'm saying? Like, pay attention to this stuff, guys. That's what I'm saying. We have a lot, California has a lot of geniuses here, a lot of smart technology that other states still ain't caught up on. This is why also we make so much money here, and why we're the fifth largest economy, okay? The inequity is intentional. Data exposes what denial hides. Transparency isn't radical, it's required. Until the governor demands quarterly public ledgers of where every equity dollar goes, Californians will face financing programs that serve slogans instead of citizens. So you need to understand the numbers. Now, where did the money go? Follow the trail and you'll find injustice with a receipt. During the pandemic, billions in relief were funneled through nonprofit networks that favored new immigrant populations. Housing, childcare, and business recovery grants bypassed historic Black districts from Oakland to South LA. The very communities that kept California's economy running through crisis were left off the spreadsheet of salvation. No one needs another speech about inclusion. We do not want to be included with any immigrants moving forward. We don't want to be included in minorities moving forward. We need audits that name names and zip codes. Equity funds should not vanish into a maze of middlemen who pocket administrative fees while our neighborhoods decay. A true people's government would publish every grant, every vendor, every beneficiary in plain sight. This is where we talk about newer technology like blockchain. You know, our government, our president is using that right now because he understands what it is, meaning that it's immutable, meaning that people can't just try to change up that information anymore. This is why you need to know that when you got other ignorant Negro people talking about crypto and blah, 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 and they don't know what they're talking about, they can't understand what it is because they haven't read a white paper in their life and they're trying to come against you. They want to focus on scheming and scamming or focusing on small level things when it's like, dog, you just learn a few things and you can progress so much further. It's not enough of us in these fields that we can look at these trails and shut people down. But when you're concentrated on uh, thinking you need to be have a man in the home because somebody is emotionally wrecked, and saying your degree don't matter at the end of the day, that's an issue they got because the degrees do matter. If they didn't matter, a lot of these corporate jobs and these people that's running stuff that are putting money into the government that you get paid more because you make more, they want to compare certain trade jobs to people that are making decisions through the mind. Like, come on. Is that money going to support a local politician? If not, shut up. Is it supporting your local school? Because those are the resources we need. So otherwise, you're just yapping and you're not doing the protection. You're not getting any resources. You're not doing the stuff that you are supposed to be doing to help out the black woman because she's still doing it on her own. And you got an issue with her. California's budget now includes several recurring programs that intersect with immigration or immigrant communities. Health and Human Services carries the largest share, about a third of all state spending, where the Medi-Cal expansion for undocumented adults alone costs roughly 8.5 billion a year. This 8.5 billion black women in California should have been for you through Medi-Cal expansions. Education budgets fund English learner instruction and Dreamed Act financial aid, while housing and community services channels millions into small business and street vendor formalization grants. The Department of Justice and Social Services manage legal aid programs that total 70 to 80 million annually. None of these line items are illegal. They're simply state choices that deserve public accounting, meaning our government, again, through policy, just like when they took farmland or destroyed water sharing to other farmers, took you out of jobs and displaced you out of those jobs, or let crime go rampant and homelessness go rampant and your housing fall down. When they did all of that, it was legal because it was on the books. This is why some of the issues you're dealing with is because of your voting. And voting means, who are you putting in office that is going to benefit the people? You, black women, your kids, your businesses, your homes, your progress. So this is why it doesn't look illegal. But this is also why you have the current administration saying, we're not going to send you guys funds. We want all of these people gone. We're going to try to take away this birthright from the amendment. We're going to try to do all of this because we want to focus on Americans. And you're over here saying everybody is racist. You're over here not looking at the facts. This is why when you said you was going to step away and step back, like me, you should have been looking at this stuff. So you can say, all right, now that I've rested, now that I've come back with a new mind, I'm going to look at what has been continuing to hold me back. This should be illegal. This should be illegal. A money map audit would follow every dollar from appropriation to outcome. Quarterly reports could show which regions receive the largest benefits, what categories of business grow under these programs, and how local employment shifts over time. Publishing those ledgers would not change who receives lawful aid, but it would let taxpayers measure efficiency and fairness. Transparency is a neutral ground where fiscal responsibility and social policy meets. People will support you because you're working. There's people who want to support you because you're working and they're working. Now, let's look at education by the numbers. California pours more than 3 billion annually into English learner programs, which I spoke about a little bit earlier in this presentation. Yet, less than 1% of that supports native English speaking black students. Now, we got black people who just it's our own way of English, but a lot of y'all, this money should be going to us. Just keep it real. Keep it real. In districts dominated by ESL funding, class sizes shrink and resources expand, while schools in black neighborhoods lose libraries, counselors, and art programs. The state calls it diversity spending, parents call it deprivation. Education should be the equalizer that closes gaps, not the tool that widens them. If Sacramento can track emissions from cars, it can track inequities in classrooms. The solution is simple: rebalance funding based on literacy outcomes, not language politics. Until we fix the formula, California's children will graduate fluent in excuses but illiterate in opportunity. And that's pretty much what's happening with our community. That's literally what's going on. Look at Black student literacy. I was not lying, and other Black women wasn't lying when we're saying a lot of the counterparts sound illiterate. When your emotions are leading you and you're saying irrational stuff, to me, that's a sign of illiteracy. Because if you stand in your truth, you study, you read books that you understand what all this political stuff. Again, I don't need to be deep in politics or any of this stuff because you can go to committees, you can go to these council meetings and speak up as some people do, right? But when we're talking about illiteracy, this is literally why we know what's happening, what's going on. Public Policy Institute data shows violent crime rates in majority Black neighborhoods have jumped 25% since 2019, while clearance rates for those crimes dropped below 40%. At the same time, the state cut community policing budgets and expanded legal aid funds for undocumented offenders. The message is clear. Lawbreakers get lawyers, citizens get candles for vigils, meaning this is why also the current administration is saying if you commit a crime and you're illegal here or undocumented, you will be deported. So this legal aid shouldn't even be expanded no more because they're saying if you commit a crime, you need to go. You need to be crimeless while you're trying to become legalized if we allow you to stay in this country. Okay. But that same legal aid, that same community policing, those budgets should have been for your neighborhoods. Black women, you need to have zero tolerance. You should not be covering up for domestic violence abusers, uh, rapists in your community, gang members in your community because it's your sons or your cousins, any of that shit. You should not, because their mindset doesn't think of progress. Their mindset is not focused on the policies that possibly had their mothers and their fathers in the position to suffer economically. They don't give a damn about that enough to say, man, I want to go and learn how to be a politician or learn statistics or learn environmental safety or get into construction and have my own big company and hire people for my own. They don't want to think like that. They rather be defeated mentally, challenge other Black people in their community, steal from other Black people, terrorize other Black people, tear down your businesses, continue to allow a certain degenerate look about us. They want to continue to allow that to be the thing and pride ourselves off of culture that is not even truly us. It's the low class culture that we allow to act as if it's first class culture. We literally have done that. Safety is not a privilege, it's a civil right. A compassionate government doesn't ignore victims to look virtuous. That's literally how the government acts, especially with homelessness, especially with letting people shoot up on the street, shit, piss, do whatever on those streets. That's what they're allowing. Restoring safety means restoring accountability, funding local patrols, supporting witness programs, and enforcing sentencing that deters repeat offenses. Justice without boundaries breeds chaos. And that's literally what's happening in sanctuary cities or states. Total chaos. And Californians deserve peace without apology. Meaning, if you're not looking at these governors that are looking to are running for next year, if you're not looking at them and you're taking this data that I found and pulled up, and you're not asking these questions, or they side with some of this stuff, then they can't be voted in. Again, you need to find allies, other American allies, so that the vote becomes stronger. Because I don't believe this particular time Black Americans will still get it that your oppression, your erasure is coming from a political administration that said they care about you. You're looking to get, I don't even want to say it's welfare, but you're looking to get some money just to sit back that your ancestors put in the work. Your ancestors put in a lot of that work. It wasn't you, it was them. But you want to benefit off of that with reparations. A lot of you aren't obtaining or going for higher educations. A lot of you aren't trying to get into management or any of that stuff, or starting your business as high revenue. A lot of you aren't doing that stuff. So you just allowing and waiting for some money to come to you for what? Based off of what? Millennials have to continue to fight because we are up next. We the next woman up, regardless of what's going on. We up next. Let's go to, we're almost finished here. Health and life expectancy. In California, Black life expectancy still trails the state average by nearly 6 years. Maternal mortality among Black women is 4 times higher than for white women. Numbers more fitting for a war zone than a wellness state. We are promoting wellness over here, but we got people in our community just dealing with all kind of health issues. And we got Medi-Cal supporting people who ain't even from here. That money should be going straight to you. If you care about the next governor, you would be like, yo, we don't want no funds, no none of that. It needs to go straight to our community. Yet billions in Medi-Cal expansions go to cover non-citizens while clinics in Black areas shudder from neglect. We don't have enough clinics. I don't want to hear about people in the South saying they got clinics here, and I don't give a damn about that shit. We are all over the US. This is our country. I just told you of the migration that happened. We worked for a lot of this stuff here. People who are out here working, people who are pursuing higher education, people who are trying to do the right things, you work for a lot of this stuff. And you're just letting it go in vain for the people who fought for it before you. That is not compassion. That is a policy driven abandonment. So the policies continue to abandon Black Californians here. So SB 518 has to be multiple policies that will rescind or stop and continue better practices in all the areas I just spoke about during this presentation. Health equity begins with triage. You stop the bleeding where it's worst. If the state truly believes in equity, it must fund prenatal care, mental health services, and chronic disease programs where the data screams crisis. Healing California starts by healing the people it forgot first. So all of that Medi-Cal fund for undocumented people should be redirected to Black families. And we want all 8.5 billion. We want all of it. I don't want to see a dollar go over there. If they want help, if they want all that, they can go to the free clinics or the clinics that will serve them. But outside of that, they can go right back to their countries and get medical attention if that's what they truly need. Because this is for Americans. These are for people who legalized themselves, who became citizens, and that's where the funding should go. Every major California industry bears Black fingerprints. From the jazz clubs of Oakland to the studios of Hollywood, from political movements in Watts to tech innovation in the Bay, Black Californians have shaped the state's global image. Yet, when budget time comes, cultural funding flows toward immigrant festivals and imported heritage programs. So don't even let people lie about Black History Month when we got Hispanic Heritage Month, we got Asian Heritage Month, we got months for everybody federally. And if it's not federal, we know for damn sure it's in California. So Don't let people who have issue with you, who are first, second, third generation immigrants, come here and try to make issue with Black History Month. And again, the media tries to manipulate people to make it seem, oh, you black people this and black people. They just want to continue to have this cultural war and this attack on black people to make immigrants feel better about themselves in a country that you helped build. Ain't no lies about that. It's the truth. Yet, when budget time comes, cultural funding flows toward immigrant festivals and imported heritage programs, while Black museums and art centers close their doors. This isn't inclusion, it's cultural gentrification. California can't call itself progressive while letting the architects of its identity fade into footnotes. Our music, our cuisine, our fashion, our activism built the California cool that the world adores. Because a lot of people from all over the world come to California, regardless of what people want to believe. When they come to America, California is one of the states they all come to. And we are letting it fall because we are not voting correctly. We are politically illiterate. Reinvestment in Black cultural institutions is not nostalgia. It's economic sense. Culture is currency. And no one has generated more for this state than the people it forgets every fiscal year. Now, immigrants have added labor to California's economy, but Black Californians gave it life. Our people fought for union rights, civil rights, women's rights, and equality under the law, the very freedoms newcomers now enjoy. So when people try to tell these immigrants that the reason you're even allowed here in the first place is because of the rights that black people had to bring up, and they fought along with white people who gave a damn to open the doors up for other people, then you come here and other people still allow y'all to jump over black people through the same rights that we voted for, that we fought for. So this is why I don't be like, I just go deaf when some immigrant thinks they're telling me anything. Like, I don't care about none of that. Go to your country and fight for civil rights and women's rights and union rights. Go to your country and do all of that. Other than that, you're just here soaking up of somebody else's benefit. You should say thank you. Labor without legacy is temporary. Foundation endures. When history is told honestly, the black community is the backbone of every major movement that made this state humane. This isn't about comparison, it's about correction. It's about recognizing that one group's arrival doesn't cancel another's sacrifice. The descendants of California's founders should never be treated as guests in their own home. Honor immigrants, yes, but honor first those who work made immigration possible. Justice begins by setting the record straight. Now, this is a policy for immediate action. I'm almost done here. We don't need new promises, we need execution. The Lineage Based Equity Act would redirect at least 10% of all equity spending to descendants of enslaved or displaced Black Californians. Measurable, auditable, and public. Quarterly compliance audits would force every taxpayer funded employer to verify legal work authorization and publish real hiring data. The Black Land and Home Recovery Fund would provide restitution credits for families who lost homes through discrimination or the 2008 crash. Education would be repaired through a tuition free California promise for verified lineage residents, and safety restored through an urban renewal and policy plan, that protects citizens while enforcing employment law equally. These are not radical ideas, they're overdue responsibilities. A government that can manage drought relief can manage moral relief. Policy is simply a choice, and California must finally choose fairness. Now, why this matters as a movement, specifically for Black Americans, but again, becoming allies with other Americans would be a great movement for us all. Meaning, if there's immigrants who do not want to join and understand why this needs to happen for you, who don't want to back you up, who wants to talk about there was no slavery here in on the West Coast because they probably are ESL learners and never and probably first second generation immigrants, so they don't even know anything. They're going off of somebody letting them in, and they don't even know their parents probably got help. They don't understand any of that stuff. So if they feel like that, they can go home. They can go back to the country of origin that they're from because it's not here. Okay. So you need to ensure that this is a movement that people will back up, and that's through allyship. So this moment is not about anger, it's about alignment. So I don't want to see us out here angry, and we could be frustrated, right? But being angry and showing out and all that shit, it's for the birds. That's for a child throwing a tantrum because they couldn't get a cookie or something, and they don't know how to communicate their feelings correctly. That's what anger is to me, right? You have a right to be angry, but showing out, destroying, like, come on, doing too much, right? We have enough intellectual people in our community that we can go and fight and speak and vote differently, that we can get things done for us. Political power is the game. Political power, political local power is the game, and it's been the game for a long time. We millennials are of age enough, and we're still, some of us still in our prime because we barely hitting 40s. Some of us are still mid 30s, barely hitting 40s, or a little bit in our 40s. So we still have time, right? When you repair what's been broken for the longest, everyone benefits. When you define equity by lineage instead of optics, fairness becomes measurable, meaning we do not want to be the same grouping as immigrants. We do not want our identity to be used to allow funding to be for immigrants. We don't want to see anymore, are you Hispanic or Latin, when you're checking off stuff, because I feel it's being discriminatory and supporting people who are undocumented here. So when you define equity by lineage instead of optics, fairness becomes measurable. California's future doesn't lie in endless expansion, it lies in restoration. We're not building a new dream, we're reclaiming the one our ancestors paid for, meaning all that farmland, cities like Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Sacramento, all the vineyards, all that shit that you see now that people want to feel prideful that just got here, all that shit should be restored because we would have been way ahead because we were working. We were doing what we are supposed to do, right? To the skeptics, this isn't divisive, it's decisive, okay? The road to unity runs through accountability. We are not asking for special treatment because this is not about special treatment. This is why the special treatment was allowing immigrants to come in here and get funding, get better access to school, change out school names. That's what you call special treatment, if we want to be 100. And again, you can use this presentation or go look up research yourself and tell an immigrant to their face, you get special treatment over me. And the government has been lenient towards you, but it's changing now that the government is no longer lenient because we have a new president, right? And if we get more Republicans in, that's going to really change the leniency that you have been experiencing for over the past few decades. And that will change now because they're focusing on Americans, meaning you're going to have to get to the back of the line and come through the legal way, right? Like everyone else had to do. We are asking for equal weight on the scales. History doesn't need rewriting, it needs balance. That's why this campaign exists, to make fairness the law, not the slogan. Okay? So, accountability, priority, and justice. Now, to close, we built this state from the soil to the skyline, and we refuse to be erased. California's story begins with us. and its redemption will too. This is the moment to sign, to vote, to reclaim. 6,000 signatures will place this truth on the ballot and this moment in the history books. This isn't politics, it's principle. It's the restoration of promise written in sweat, struggle, and sacrifice. So here's the call: we audit the money, enforce the law, work with immigration enforcement, remove illegal aliens and stop supporting them economically, crack down on crime, rebuild the promise. California belongs to its makers, the farmers of Allensworth, the workers of Oakland, the mothers of South LA, the dreamers who never stop believing in fairness. We're not leaving this state, we're leading it. And the future begins the moment we demand it. Thank you guys. I know this was a little bit longer, but I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you going all the way to the end. The link to this presentation will be in the description below, and I will be back with more soon on a new topic surrounding Black women so we can heal ourselves, we can be more literate of our politics, we can go after the things that are available to us here in our country. So thank you again. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys. You have a good night.